bespoke radio for the masses.
Headline edition, July 8, 1947. The Army Air Forces has announced that a flying disc has been found and is now in the possession of the Army.
If the game is rigged, change the game. Game changer.
I occasionally think how quickly our differences worldwide would vanish if we were facing an alien threat from outside this world.
This is Fade to Black with your host, Jimmy Church, on the Game Changer Radio Network and KGRA, the Global Radio Alliance.
I need your help to get to the year 1985.
You're listening to Fade to Black with Jimmy Church on the Game Changer Network.
All right, yeah. How you doing? All right, we're back. It's Monday, and this is Fade to Black, bespoke radio for the masses. Today is Monday, May 2nd, 123 days into the new year. 241 days left. We are live from a bunker somewhere in downtown Burbank, California. I'd like to welcome everybody listening all around the world, all across the United States, hither and thither, to and fro, back and forth, up and down, east and west, north and south, far and near. This is Fade to Black for KJCR, the Game Changer Network, and KGRA, the planet. I'm your oh so humble host, Jimmy Church. What is cracking, everybody? Love it. Monday, starting off a new week. Tonight, back with us for part 3, Ralph Ellis. Tonight's show, First Contact, First Message, and the Secrets of the Megaliths. That's right. Tomorrow night, Freeman Fly is going to be here, back again with us to talk about all things conspiracy. And then on Wednesday, it's the one and only OG, John Lear. John Lear, for the first time on Fade to Black. Call-in number is 323-825-5045. If we can get to phone calls tonight, it's part 3 with Ralph Ellis. And as you know, Ralph has a lot to say. And we've got a lot to cover tonight. If we can get to some phone calls as we wrap up, 2-3 shows with Ralph Ellis, 3 Mondays in a row. Absolutely incredible. We'll get to your phone calls. Follow us on Twitter at JChurchRadio. That's what you want to do. Hashtag F2B is the sandbox. Come and hang out. If you are on the website listening to this show, then like us on Facebook, subscribe to YouTube. Everything is Fade to Black, J Church Radio. It's easy to do. Jimmy Church Radio. Go and do it. Follow, like, and subscribe. The buttons are there. Go and do it. You can email throughout the show, Jimmy at jimmychurchradio.com. All right? Questions or comments during the show is hashtag F2B. I was just looking over, and John Renzi, Ren, just tweeted out a picture of, it's a meme of the prisoner. Number 6, where am I? Number 2, in the village. What do you want? We want information. I believe that is episode number 1. I am not a number. I am a free man. Thank you for that, and consider it stolen. I don't know where you got it. Maybe he made it. I don't know. But one of the greatest shows of all time. I talk about it enough, but The Prisoner is amazing. If you haven't seen it, go and check it out. All right. Support yourself. Support the show. Support our sponsors. Go to Life Change Tea right now. GetTheTea.com. Somebody, I saw this, I think it was a tweet over the weekend. We were up in San Francisco. And somebody said, man, I can't. I'm like, dude, it's a bright yellow banner. It says, get the tea. It's that simple. Just use the promo code Jimmy. Go to the specials page. Ronnie's always got great deals going on. Go to the specials page and do it. What we have been, it started for us a couple of months ago, but I got to tell you, we have been doing the colostrum LD powder. Well, we do the pills too, but the powder, the vanilla powder. And Rita loves it. And when I say love, she loves it. She gets that milk mustache. You know what I'm talking about? And it's good. It's really, 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 really good. So you should check that out. And it's cool. I think it says on the package, direct delivery system or something like that. It's pretty cool. Also, Studio Dome. I was looking at some pictures today of the Studio Dome crew that we took last year, the year before. And wow, I can't believe they've been with us for that long. But the Fade or Not special is there for you. It is a true wireless stereo Bluetooth high-fidelity stereo system for $129. 2 speakers, hard shell case. Use the promo code JCRTWS. The banner's right there. Click on it. $129. And free shipping. Can't beat it. We just got back from the New Living Expo. More on that in just a bit. Absolutely fabulous weekend. And just incredible. I'm going to talk about that in just a bit. And then coming up, I can't believe it, in 1 month, 4 weeks, Contact in the Desert, June 3rd through the 6th in Joshua Tree, California. Graham Hancock, Robert Bivall, Giorgio Wilcock, Von Daniken, Nori, Mars, Childress, Sheehan, Mars, Mars. Oh, it's going to be great. Linda Moulton Howe, everybody is going to be, I think they have 50, 60 speakers, and just go click on it. Everything is there. The Roswell Festival comes up a month after that, and then a month after that, we are up in Big Bear, California for UFOs Within Reach. Again, where it says on the right side of the webpage, it's right there, Jimmy's appearances. Everything's there, links, go and do it. Let's get the show cracking. I'm all ready. Today, Engelbert Humperdinck is 80 years old, and that is for Rita. She's a huge Engelbert Humperdinck fan. We all are. What's not to love about Engelbert Humperdinck? 80 years old. Is he the most famous guy out of Wales? Is he the most famous? Or would it be James Bond, Sean Connery? Ooh, tough call. Tough call. I guess it would depend on the year, wouldn't it? All right. Our dead guy's birthday, posted this up today. Link Ray. Yeah, man. The man. 1929 to 2005. Died at the age of 76. And he was the guy. He was, when he kicked things off in the 50s, the distorted electric guitar, power chords, the power chord. I mean, I'm not too sure if everything else would have happened if it wasn't for Link Ray. And his band was called the Raymen. Absolutely amazing guitar player. Now, a couple of things. I'll get to this in a second. But as far as punk and heavy rock, his image, the sound, the way that he played, his attitude, his stage presence, he was the orig. Rolling Stone placed Link number 45 of the 100 greatest guitarists of all time. 2013, he was a nominee for the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. Didn't make it. Should have. Shame. Right? But also, if you ever wonder who Link Ray is, just go and check out Pulp Fiction. And you've when that scene pops up with Rumble, his hit, starts playing, you always, who is that dude? If you don't know who it is, right? That's Link Ray. Link Ray, happy birthday, brother. Happy birthday. If you go to my Facebook page, check out the picture I posted of Link. That dude, he was a beast. On this day in history in 1933, it started in 1933. the Loch Ness Monster was sighted for the first time. Goes back throughout history. But as far as modern history goes, and kicking off everything that followed on this day in 1933 by a local couple, Mr. and Mrs. John McKay, 1933. And then also on this day in 1519, Leonardo da Vinci dies in France. Fate or fact? This is, you can check this out too. And before you go, church. During the Mormon War, and there was one in 1838, the governor of Missouri made it legal to kill Mormons. Yeah, man. And the law wasn't rescinded until 1976. I'm giggling, not at the Mormons. I mean, they're worth a giggle. But just how crazy is this country? I mean, seriously. Wow. All right. Tonight, Ralph Ellis is with us. Very excited. Part 3. And first contact, first message, and the secrets of the Megaliths. We will be wrapping up the first 2 shows with this very exciting part 3 tonight. Tomorrow night, Freeman's going to be here. And then Wednesday, OG, original gangsta, John Bleepin' Lear, right here on Fade to Black. All right, a couple of things before I start to move on. We just got back from San Francisco. And a couple of notes here that I just wanted to say. First off, thank you to Ken Kaufman and his wife, Karina, for putting on an absolute amazing conference up there. And if you've never been to the New Living Expo, it's big, it's all that. Yeah, it's a huge conference. But you need to go. If you go to conferences, you know, and there's great ones all year long, all around the country. We all have our favorites. But if you haven't been to the New Living Expo, you owe it to yourself next year to go to this conference. First off, it's in San Francisco. What's not to love? Okay. Second, it's the people of San Francisco. They don't get angry unless you tell them you're from L.A. So you just keep that out, whatever. But lovely people. And the vibe that goes down at that conference is so uber cool. Now, it's big. See, this is the thing. Most conferences that you go to, they'll have a vendor area with, 20, 30, 40 vendors. No, not here. They got an airplane hangar, right? I don't know how many. I don't know. It's got to be close. It's got to be 500 or more. It's got to be. It's huge. But everybody is so cool there. And we just had the most wonderful time. My gig there couldn't have been more perfect. Now, what they do is they have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 rooms with speakers in it going on at the same time. 2 of those rooms are friggin' airplane hangars that are separate buildings from the main building. That's rooms 6 and 7. Huge, huge rooms. I have no idea how many people can fit. I don't know. It's big. And my gig was Building 6, the special events. And so I got to introduce everybody. But that's not my point. But being there for 3 days, introducing everybody and outroing everybody all day long means I got to hang out with the crowds before and after. And it was absolutely wonderful. Wonderful. What an experience. And now, okay, a couple of things of note. There were, and we're talking large groups, right? And I would go, okay, all right, how many people here listen to Fade to Black, Coast to Coast, watch History Channel? How many? Let me see hands. Some groups, you have 300, 400 people, I don't know. Some groups half of the room would raise their hands, right? Cool. There was a couple of groups, I'm not going to say the speakers, but it's a different group of people that are coming in. And I got one hand raised out of 300. And I was like, what? Yeah. And I loved it because that means fresh people getting to speak to people that aren't normally exposed to what we do here. And it was so cool. I mean, it was great. Now let me move on. Now that you know that, just imagine it was trippy. Scott Walter, amazing time with Scott. Great presentation. He hung out with us all weekend. Stephen Greer did 2 presentations, both of them packed and just amazing information. What I'm going to say about Stephen Greer, the second presentation that he did, he played video for about an hour of different things, and I was blown away. I had no clue. Third thing about Stephen Greer, dude is cool. I'll take a bullet for that guy. If anybody ever comes back with fraud, fake, this, that, blah, 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 they don't know him. I was able to hang out with him for 2 days and see what he was really, really like. Yeah, he's tall, he's big, he's intimidating, and he's strong, and he's got a strong personality. But I'm just going to tell you right now, that guy was the exact opposite of what I was expecting. Very humble guy, very cool guy, very accessible guy. So I won't take the negativity for him ever again. I'm just not going to do it. That stuff's going to get deleted, punted, and booted. All right. Third, Nassim Haramein. Cool guy. Great presentation. But let me tell you what one of the highlights of the weekend was. There was a lady that came up to me on Friday, and her name was Marie. She comes up to me on Friday, and I'm going to guess, Marie, I know she's listening right now. I know that she is. I don't know how old Marie is, but she's somewhere between, I'm going to put her at 71 to 72 years old. Marie, if you can run Twitter or shoot me an email right now, do that, and let me know how old you are, because she could be older. I don't think she's younger. And there's reasons for that. She's a very smart woman. You can tell. So she comes up. I listen to Fade to Black every single day. I said, no, you don't. I do. Where's Rita? Right? I was like, wow, okay. All right. Well, after Nassim's little thing, she comes up to me, and she had this purple hat on that looked like purple hair. Right, tight-fitting skull cap with this purple hair. Cool. Purple jacket, glasses. And she comes up and she goes, and so Nassim is off to my left, and he's got literally 50, 75 people standing around him in this group, and he's talking to everybody off to the left. And she comes up, she goes, Jimmy, I had this experience where I fell asleep and I woke up, and she told me what happened. I was like, wow. You know what, Marie, I think that really happened. She goes, I know, I think it really did too. No, I said, I think, with the way you just described it to me, I think that really happened. She goes, can you tell Nassim about it? I said, you go do it. I can't do it. Look at all of those people over there. She's, 5 foot tall. I said, come on, Marie, let's go. Took her by the arm. We walked over. I put my head down. Excuse me. Get to the center of the universe there. Bust through the crowd with Marie. I went up to Nassim and I said, dude, I want to introduce you to your biggest fan. This is Marie. He turns around, bows, right? And I said to the crowd, everybody say hello to Marie. 75 people yelled at the top of their lungs, hello, Marie. It was amazing. Anyway, and if you were there, you know exactly what I'm talking about. It's a pretty cool moment. But this is what was cool with Nassim. Nassim stood there with Marie for about 10, 15 minutes and talked to her with this crowd. And it was one of the most awesomest moments that one could ever have. It was certainly a highlight of the weekend. Little Marie. And I got to tell you, that smile did not leave her face for another 2 days. And so anyway, there was that moment. And then the other two moments for me were the 2 nights that we spent with the Fadernauts. Yes, we did. Dave. Is Dave in the sandbox? Dave, say hello. I'm here. I haven't looked over at Twitter yet. Oh my God, Twitter's on fire. Okay. All right. So it was Friday night. So we have Dave Cruz, Skater frigging Lisa, Nancy Nurse, Rita, and myself in the lounge, in the restaurant in the lounge, and we threw down. Mike Barra ends up coming over to the table, and I think Laura Eisenhower was at the table next to us. But anyway, it was a group party, and we shut that place down. And that conversation, that dinner, the food, and what we got to do that night with everybody was, for me, was my highlight of the weekend. And then Saturday night, check this out. Saturday night, we decided to take over the lounge. And we rolled up we collected, Rita went around, everybody, we went around, collected every chair that we could, got a pit going, a circle, and we filled it up with everybody. Now, when I say everybody was there. We had Lori McDonald, Holly Cook, Laura Eisenhower, both Marks were there. We had Brent Barra, Greg Braden, and Lori, and then it was much more people there than that. Ken Kaufman and his wife Karina, Scott Walter. But anyway, then my brother Danny, out of the blue, Danny Church, my little brother, drives down from Marin, jumps in with his girlfriend Mary and their daughter Sean, and we had 20 people at least. I'm leaving a bunch of people, but we sat all night long from 7 o'clock at night, 8 o'clock at night until 2 o'clock in the morning. We had this conversation pit going, and it was uber cool, and that was our weekend. And it was perfect. It was just a perfect weekend. So I want to, again, extend the most humbling thanks to Ken Kaufman and his wife, Karina, for all of us that attended. It was just a perfect weekend. Not one flaw. Nothing. It was just amazing. Nobody got arrested. It was pretty cool. So if you ever want to experience a really cool conference, the New Living Expo is the place to be. All right? And much more to say than just that. You know, I know I'm leaving. Oh, Dino. 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 That's all I got to say right there. Dino, you the man. And I just can't think right now. It was absolutely amazing. All right, let me get to a couple of news tidbits really quick, then I'll get Ralph Ellis in here. For the first time, it was announced today, researchers have discovered 3 potentially habitable Earth-like worlds orbiting an ultra-cool dwarf star 40 light-years away in another star system, and this was released today in the journal Nature. The ultra-cool dwarf star, known as TRAPPIST-1, isn't the kind of star that scientists expected to be a hub for planets. It's at the end of the range of what classifies as a star, half the temperature and 1/10 of the mass of our sun. TRAPPIST-1 is red, barely larger than Jupiter, and too dim to be seen with the naked eye or even amateur telescopes from Earth. The planets are about the size of Earth, though, and given the proximity of two of them to the dwarf star, they receive about 4 times the amount of radiation than we do from our sun, which suggests that they are in the habitable zone. Less is known about this third outer planet, which receives only twice the amount of radiation that Earth does, but it is potentially in the habitable zone as well. Very cool. Mastermind Russian hackers who coded and distributed the Gozi malware, 25, was charged along with Dennis, his name, Nikita Kuzmin, he's 25 years old, was charged along with Denis Kalavskis, 27 years old, and Mahi Pounsku, 28, for infecting more than 1 million computers worldwide in order to steal banking and other credentials from tens of thousands of victims. They may face a maximum penalty of 95, 60, and 67 years in prison, respectively. Kuzmin allegedly created the Gozi program in 2005, hiring a programmer to write the source code and then leasing it to other criminal customers. The virus infected at least 40,000 computers in the United States, including more than 160 computers belonging to NASA. Cost victims tens of millions of dollars in losses. The malicious code allowed Kuzmin remotely to control the compromised systems as a botnet, installing additional code to steal additional information and access bank accounts. Absolutely incredible. Construction workers have found 1,300 pounds of ancient Roman coins while carrying out routine work on water pipes in southern Spain. Dating back to the late 3rd and early 4th centuries, the bronze coins were found yesterday inside 19 Roman amphoras, a jar, in the town of Tamares near Seville. The coins are stamped with the inscriptions of emperors Maximian and Constantine. Yeah, and they appeared not to have been in circulation, as in they look brand new. Now, I know what you're wondering. What are they worth? Are you ready? They are saying tens of millions of euros. 1,300 pounds of Roman coins in Spain. So I guess Ralph Ellis might have something to say about this when we bring him on in just a bit. This is Fade to Black. I'm your host, Jimmy Church. We are back from San Francisco. Another week of Fade to Black about to kick off. Tonight, part 3 with Ralph Ellis. First visit, first message, and the secrets of the Megaliths. Part 3 with Ralph Ellis right after this short break. You stay right there. I'll be right back.
You're listening to Jimmy Church, Fade to Black.
Fade to Black will now pause for alien identification.
The station that talks the net. KGRA Radio. What's up, revolutionaries? It's me, Jimmy Church. Do you have an IRS or state tax issue? Well, I did, and I called national tax experts. My problems were fixed, done, fini, and man, I got to tell you, it was a relief. National Tax Experts are a recognized tax office that services clients in all 50 states. It doesn't matter where you live. Give them a call. I'm telling you, they take the time to understand each and every client's individual financial status as well as their financial goals. And that's exactly what you need, my brother, when you're taking on the evil 3-letter. So, seriously, give them a call today at 1-877-909-5444. Again, 1-877-909-5444. Or go check out their website, www.nattaxexperts.com. That's NATTAXEXPERTS.com. Tell them Jimmy sent you.
Poor water quality is a major health issue, and it's only getting worse. Municipalities can't keep up, standards have dropped, and pollutants are increasing. Where does it all end? It ends by keeping the pollutants outside of your home with HydroCare's advanced systems available at Wave Home Solutions. No less than the best purification materials and processes have been developed by HydroCare to provide you with healthy, clean water for drinking, cooking, and showering. HydroCare far surpasses the competition in removing chlorine, odors, iron, lead, chemicals, limescale, and much more. Don't settle for less when it comes to your water. We'll take care of the toughest water problems for you, whether it's from a city or well source. Satisfaction guaranteed. For more information, call 888-997-WAVE. That's 888-997-WAVE. Or go to bestwater123.com. That's bestwater123.com.
Wave Home Solutions for a healthy, comfortable home.
9 out of 10 geneticists agree.
Fade to Black is not your father's radio show on the Game Changer Radio Network and KGRA, The Planet.
Hi, this is Chase Kletsky with Fate Magazine Radio, and you're listening to Jimmy Church and Fade to Black on the Game Changer Network and the KGRA digital broadcast station where the Fader-Knots rock.
Hi, this is Rob Reiner from Anvil, and you're listening to JimmyChurchRadio.com.
What's up? I'm Chris. What up? This is Kyle Matthew, and you're listening to Jimmy Church Radio.
Welcome back. It's Monday, another week kicking off here for Fade to Black. Tonight, Ralph Ellis, Part 3. Tomorrow night, Freeman Fly. Wednesday night, the OG, John Lear, is going to be here. Of course, Thursday night, Fader Night, and John Rappaport and his No More Fake Newsroom. Let's get to it. Let's get to Part 3. Ralph Ellis has been researching biblical and Egyptian history for more than 30 years. Being independent from theological and educational establishments allows Ralph to tread where others do not dare. And it is through his independence that he has discovered so many new biblical and historical truths. His books include Jesus, Last of the Pharaohs, Eden in Egypt, Adam and Eve were Pharaoh Akhenaten and Nefertiti, the King Jesus Trilogy, Cleopatra to Christ, Jesus is the great-grandson of Cleopatra, Thoth, Architect of the Universe, and his latest work, The Grail Cipher, where, of course, we went over this the last couple of weeks. He explains that Arthurian history is actually based on gospel history. I would like to welcome back to Fade to Black, Mr. Ralph Ellis from Spain. Ralph, good morning once again.
Good morning again to you, Jimmy. And yes, for a third time by popular demand, back again. Thanks very much.
Oh, absolutely, Ralph. And the feedback has been extraordinary. And I want to thank you. Myself and the staff here have been watching you hang out in YouTube and responding to everybody. That takes a lot of patience, and you've been behaving, but it just goes to show you have been behaving too. It just goes to show you the response has been pretty extraordinary. You've been blowing some minds, my friend.
Yes, both on Facebook and on YouTube. Yes, lots and lots of feedback, which is good to see. I mean, this is what it's all about. It's putting the message out there and getting the feedback and explaining why it's probably true. So that's part and parcel of my job. Yes.
Yeah, and you know what I found funny with the responses, and I know you saw the same thing. I don't think anybody has been critical about the information, and that's what's pretty wild. Everybody is thankful for this. If there's been anything critical, It's just been more of a personal nature with either me, because they don't like me anyway, or, on that level about us being critical about other people, but not about the data and what you presented. That's got to make you feel pretty good.
Yeah, I had some trepidation when I first started this, about, when I was first writing back in 97, I think it was. And you go out there to the public, and of course you don't know what they're going to ask. And you don't know if you're going to be able to answer all the questions. But even when I was debating with Egyptologists and historians and various other people, I found I could do it. I had the information, and they didn't understand the history as well as I did. So I got more and more confident of this as I went on. And so, yes, I'm happy to debate this at any time, because I don't lose the argument.
Right. And it's also funny to me, people will hear what they want to hear, not necessarily what was said. And one of the things that was set up there was that you and I deleted, and I found this interesting, would not listen to other researchers, and we would delete their comments, right? And,
yes, I saw that.
Yeah. And thank you for defending me too, by the way. I saw your response to that, because no comments are deleted, number one. The only things that are ever deleted are things with bad language in it. Or, that I just don't tolerate that. Plus, kids, are hanging out on YouTube. And I just, I instruct everybody, if there's anything with bad language, it goes. But you and I never said anything about other researchers. What I did say, if my memory serves, was that everybody's got a different way of looking at things, and we're gathering all of this information. Now, discounting what's in the Bible or not, that's not even the point. It's just listen to Ralph, listen to this show, listen to other researchers, and then go out there and do your own research. That's all we said. It was pretty bizarre.
Yeah, the information is out there. So, as they said in a famous TV program once, and yeah, it is. That's pretty much what you need to do. Soak it all up and see what you get.
Did you see there was one comment posted? I don't know if it was on Facebook or Twitter or YouTube. I can't remember. But one of them was, dude, I went and looked up King Jesus of Edessa, and it's in Wikipedia. Or did you see that comment? And the guy was
Yes.
like, holy crap, it's real.
It's got to be, if it's in Wiki, it's got to be real.
Yeah, right. Oh, man. Before we get started, I wanted to ask you, how far are you from Seville? And did you hear about this Roman coin discovery?
Yeah, that was pretty interesting. They found basically one of the Legion's banks. They've done this before. They did it in Jersey, the little island off the coast of Britain, and they found a Celtic bank, as it were, which was again almost as big, thousands and thousands of coins. But yes, every Roman legion had a bank that went with it, because all of the legionnaires were paid a standard daily rate. And of course, every city would have to have the same, because their economy worked exactly the same as our economy. You paid the soldiers, and the soldiers paid for all of the things they needed. And so to control it, you had to have a bank somewhere. And probably 3rd century, were they withdrawing from Spain? It's a bit early for the end of the Western Roman Empire. The Western Roman Empire didn't start collapsing until the late 4th century. But yes, there were several of these caches of coins discovered.
Yeah, 1,300 pounds. That is over a half a ton of coinage.
That's quite a big bank ring, isn't it?
It's a lot. And it's a lot today, right? It's a lot today. Yeah. It's an armored car full of stuff. Okay, that is an enormous amount of wealth in the 3rd century. I mean, holy crap. I mean, seriously, if you wrap your mind around that for a second, and so it makes you wonder how it got. How?
Well, if you think about a legion is 6,000 people. They all have to have their daily wage.
But they walked away from the money. It was buried.
Yes. How did they lose it?
Yeah, how do you lose a half a ton of bronze coins?
A bit careless,
yeah. Hey, Maximus, come here. What happened with the bank? I don't know. It was here yesterday. It was on 40 horses, man. So anyway, pretty bizarre. And for them to say that they had no idea, but they estimated the worth to be in the tens of millions of euros. And also uncirculated. That was the other part that I thought was interesting. The coins are in absolute mint condition with no wear.
Yes.
Yeah.
All brand new.
How'd you like to be digging in your backyard in Spain, right?
Yeah, that would be nice. There are a lot of people that do this. Of course, especially in Britain, they go around with their detectors, and they've found some pretty good stuff. There was the Staffordshire hoard, which came up recently, which was Dark Age material, and that had hundreds of pieces of jewelry in it. So that was quite a good one.
Now tonight, let's get things started because we have a lot to discuss, and I want you to help everybody out. You had said that everybody will need a Google Maps page for the show tonight, and go to satellite mode, right? Okay, so
Yes.
I'm instructing everybody to get Google Maps ready. He'll help you out with that. I'll get Google Maps going on my side, too, as well. And a simple calculator. And I just love this. That means we're actually going to get our learn on.
Yes, we are.
Right. And this is for the Avebury location section of the show tonight. So I want everybody to get ready for that. And let's go ahead and kick things off. I'm actually going to... obviously, I'm going to steer the conversation tonight, but you want to start the discussion off, and I found this really interesting, with Ancient Aliens, because it's going to go all the way through to 2001, A Space Odyssey. And these are like my two favorite subjects, so we're going to have a huge, right? And then a huge gap in between. And where would you like to start?
Well, in a way, let's start with 2001: A Space Odyssey, because this is what it's all about. Let's have this up front. We're going to be talking about ancient aliens. I don't normally do this talk. I haven't done this talk for more than 10 years, I think, because it's slightly incompatible with all of the historical stuff I do, because it's, in a way, it's still a little bit of a taboo subject. We don't talk about it too much in polite society, which is strange because the majority of scientists will agree that aliens exist. If you ask a scientist, especially an astroscientist, does life exist anywhere else in the universe? They will say, yes, of course it does. I mean, the odds in favor of it are tremendous. And then you ask them, what about intelligent life? Is there intelligent life in the universe? And they'll say, well, yeah, probably, because, there are so many planets, etc., etc. And then you say, well, has that intelligent life ever visited Earth? And they'll say, probably not.
Right.
And that's the final step that people cannot cross, because to say that aliens have been here, well, they'll say no evidence, but if you show them the evidence, they'll say that's not evidence because it's impossible. And nobody really wants to talk about it. So although you can talk about aliens in polite society, to have aliens actually walking on planet Earth is beyond the pale, so nobody talks about it. So
right.
Let's actually talk about it and say we want to prove it. There is the evidence out there, and I'm going to show listeners tonight the evidence is there. And I hope my evidence is going to be conclusive. So what we're talking about here is the 2001 scenario. Do you realize it's nearly 50 years since that film was released?
I can't believe it. And it's as fresh today and is remarkable today. It could have been made yesterday, no doubt.
It could, couldn't it?
Yes, it could.
It was made so well. The cinematography was absolutely fantastic on that film. And there's a whole generation, two generations of people who have grown up who don't know 2001: A Space Odyssey, which is quite incredible, really. But anyway, the scenario I'm talking about is the 2001 scenario. So I think Arthur C. Clarke was rather prescient, because it explains his film and his book explains everything that I've sort of discovered within the megalithic architecture. So that an alien civilization came to the Earth. They found a proto-society, a sort of not even a Neolithic society, but below that. They did some education. They made some megaliths, and then they went. They disappeared. And then, of course, in the film, we have that marvelous jump, because in 2001: A Space Odyssey, the education is done to a group of hominids. That's how far they go back. They go back to a group of hominids, so there's no civilization whatsoever on Earth at the time. They educate the hominids, and then the film leaps from hominid all the way up to 2001, and suddenly we have this, big space journey over to Jupiter. That is the scenario we're going with. So a message was left. In 2001, it was a sentinel. It was a monolith. There was a monolith on Earth, and there was a monolith left on the moon that they discovered. And in the original book, I don't know if you read this, Jimmy, but in the original book from Arthur C. Clarke, that monolith was actually a pyramid.
And was also had a television, had a display in it as well.
Yeah, they changed it because it was too difficult to film.
Right,
so they changed it to a monolith stone.
Right.
But, the original book had a pyramid in it on the moon. So anyway, they left a calling card. We were here, which you have to go out and discover. It's not going to be easy to find. This is a quest. You've got to go and discover it. And in the 2001 version, it was via a magnetic anomaly they found it.
Deliberately buried.
Deliberately buried, yeah. So this is a quest. You've got to go and find something that's deliberately buried. And that's what we're going to do tonight. We're going to go and find something that's been deliberately buried.
Let's go. I'm so ready.
So let's start off with this. There are three main megalithic pieces of architecture we want to look at. There's Avebury in Britain, Stonehenge in Britain, and then we're going to jump across to the pyramids. Now, there are others across the world, and I'm sure they all have the same sort of basic message attached to them somehow, but someone's going to need to look at those in more detail, because I've not cracked the code on those other ones. Not quite so well as these ones anyway. So the first one we're going to look at is Avebury.
I've got it up. I've got it up. And if everybody get Avebury up, all you have to do in Google Maps, just type in Avebury, and it'll take you through.
Well, you don't even need to do that at present. You can have it anywhere in the world. So you can have your Google map sitting on America. It doesn't matter, because we're going to type in some latitudes and longitudes.
Okay. All right. Well, I've got Avebury ready.
Well, yes, you do that. But it's more interesting if you type in London and go to London first, and then we'll make the hyper jump later.
Okay.
So let's imagine you've come to Earth and you're doing your educational project, and your educational project is the megalithic architecture. Because remember, if you're going to make a megalith, something like Avebury or Stonehenge, you've got to create a society in order to make that particular artifact. You're going to need the stonemasons. You're going to need the transport. You're going to need ships because all of these megaliths had, for some reason, they had stones coming by ship. So you're going to need a navy. You're going to need the farmers to feed them. You're going to need the administrators. You're going to need the priesthood. All of the elements that we consider to be part of a normal society, that run a society.
Hey, Ralph, I got to jump in. Do you know there's a crop circle right now, right next to Avebury in Google Earth?
Is there? Okay.
Yeah, right.
Well, it depends how old that picture is.
It's there right now. I can pull up a date, but I'm looking at it. It's in the field to the northeast, the one that touches the outer stone circle of Avebury, right? And it's right there, man. Right in the middle. There's a friggin' crop circle, man.
Good.
That is a trip.
So let's. Where were we? So you've built this society so that you can create these megaliths. But what are you going to do with this megalith? You've got a project. You're not going to do nothing with it. You're going to try and use this project in order to leave your message. So just as in 2001, they left the Sentinel with a magnetic anomaly. You can use these megaliths to leave a message. But what message can you leave? You can't write anything because languages change down the millennia, across the continents, across the galaxy. A language will change. There are only 2 or 3 languages that remain constants. One of them is mathematics. That is a constant throughout time and throughout space. Cartography, because if you draw a picture of England, that's going to stay the same, from one decade to the next.
Right.
1 millennia to the next. Or the cosmos. If you draw a picture of the cosmos, that's pretty obvious, and that's going to be static. So those are the sort of messages you can leave in order to prove to future generations that this was a technical message that you're leaving, and not just a group of stones. So that's what they're going to do. It's pretty obvious, if you're going to leave a message, it's going to be something of this nature, and that is what they've done at Avebury. So think about Avebury for a minute. I think most people will know the shape of Avebury. Avebury is a circle. A big Earth circle drawn on the plains of Salisbury. But it's slightly fatter east-west than it is north-south. And then it has a road that runs east-west, and it has another road that sort of runs north-south. They are the sort of equator and the axis of this circle, this big earthwork circle. And it's big, of course. I mean, this circle is it's about 0.5 kilometer across, so it's a pretty big piece of architecture.
Virtually a town in the middle of it.
Yeah, it's got a village in the middle of it. And there's a nice pub there as well if you're there.
That's what I've heard.
Go and have a ploughman's lunch at the pub. It's very, very nice. And this circle is also inclined. It's not vertical. Okay, it's rotated anti-clockwise by about 23 degrees. Now, are we beginning to see what this message is? Okay. This is a picture of the Earth.
Oh, yes.
Inclined by 23 degrees.
Yes.
With an equator with an axis.
Yes.
Just exactly the same as the Earth is.
Right.
So, yeah, just as I said before, they've left a picture of the cosmos, a picture of the Earth, because everyone will recognize it. Well, the funny thing is, in the modern era, adults can't recognize it because it's impossible to them, so they don't recognize it. But if you show it to a child and say, is that the Earth? They'll say, yeah, of course it is.
And you know what's bizarre? Yeah, right. And as we move on here, I just want to say that the entire... It's not only the roads and the axis and the north, south, east, west, and everything is presented at this 23 degrees, and you can see it's really out. It's everything else on the inside of it, too. The homes, the buildings, certainly everything at the center. and the lines in everything is at 23 degrees. Oh, wow. Now, that's
and even
bizarre
better
to me.
than that there are two circles. They're not very visible now, but they were detected through geophysics some time ago. There's a circle in the north hemisphere, and there's a circle in the south. Now, the circle in the north hemisphere has an image of Stonehenge in the middle of it, and it's marked with its latitude. So not only are they drawing pictures of the Earth, so somehow, these Neolithic societies knew what the Earth looked like and drew it. But now they're drawing a picture of Stonehenge and marking it with the latitude, 52 degrees north, roughly. So they now know the latitude system. And this might sound surprising, but remember when we were talking about Hamat Tavira on the Sea of Galilee in the previous talks? And the Helios character there was holding a spherical Earth, a blue-green spherical Earth in his hand. Yes. You can just do a search for this, if you want, Hamat Tavira, Galilee, Zodiac, and you'll come up with a picture of it. And so this information was out there, that the Earth was a blue-green sphere floating in space around Helios, the sun. And they've got the same imagery here at Avebury. Now, in the southern hemisphere of this Avebury henge, there is another circle with another image in the middle of it. And it took me ages to find out what this was, because, the northern image is a little tiny image of Stonehenge. That's fairly obvious. And they've got this image in the southern hemisphere. Well, what sort of monument is there in the southern hemisphere? I was searching for ages for megalithic monuments in the southern hemisphere. Couldn't find anything. And I had a big map one day, and suddenly, big light bulb moment, eureka. It's a group of islands. And it's a very, very distinctive pattern of a group of islands. I won't tell listeners which one it is. You're going to have to read the book for that, I'm afraid.
Fair enough.
But it's a very distinct group of islands in the southern hemisphere. So now you've got to think of these Neolithic societies sailing down to the southern hemisphere to go and survey a group of islands down there. It's getting more and more impossible, isn't it?
Now, are you talking about the group of stones that is just east of Beckhampton Road? There's the 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 large stones.
I haven't got it up here. I'm going to have to look.
Man, I see. What's really cool about Avebury and Google Earth is when you can take this down to Street View and look at these stones. This is...
Yes, there's you can't really see them. You can see 1/4 of the circle, and that's all you can see. So most of them are only available through geophys. Most of them were broken up.
Right.
So you have to go and have a look at an original survey in an archaeological book to find it. So I'm going to move my Avebury map back again by typing in London.
Okay.
And I'm going to go disappear across to London. There we are. And I've done a hyper jump down to London. Okay. So we have this Earth map. And the next thing is, where are you going to put it? Now, these megaliths were put all over the planet, as everyone knows. So every sort of region has its own megalith. This was the sort of northwest European megalith. So it needs to be in northwest Europe. But then this is a very complex piece of planning. Everything has something within it. We'll see this when we come on to the pyramids, because everything has a piece of mathematics associated with it. So you're not going to just plonk it anywhere. You're going to put it in a special location because you want to show future generations that this artifact is technical. So how are you going to do that? Well, the easiest way is to put it on a certain special latitude, a certain special position. that people will recognize as being technical. That's someone's needed to actually calculate this. It's not just plonked anywhere. So where are you going to put it? Well, in terms of longitude, there is nowhere to measure from. So longitude at present is measured from Greenwich in London. And that's our sort of reference longitude. We don't have a reference longitude for any of these megaliths. So the reference longitude would have been the monument itself. So we're going to have to put in an artificial one to give us a longitude from Greenwich. And that is, so on the box on the top left of the Google Maps page, we're just going to type in the longitude, which is W 1.854167. And that is the longitude of Avebury. So we've just put that in. So what about latitude? We know these people knew lines of latitude because they've marked it, as I say, on this map. And if you read it in the book, you'll see how they marked it. They understood the latitude system and could measure it, which is quite interesting. I mean, how do you measure lines of latitude back in the Neolithic age?
Yeah, right.
From the equator, it's pretty difficult. So we're going to put in a special line of latitude. But which one are they going to choose? Well, the easiest would be something like a tenth of the circumference of the Earth. Well, a tenth of the circumference is 36 degrees because,
360 divided by 10, blah, 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 right?
It is 36, yeah.
Right.
And they use 360 degrees. I mean, this is very ancient. This is not a modern thing. They use 360 degrees because there are 360 days in a year. And the Egyptians had a 360-day year and then 5 extra days put on the end. And, of course, that means that every day is 1 degree. That's how it was invented in astronomical sort of circles. So they would have been using 360, the same as us. So a tenth doesn't work because that puts you down in southern Spain somewhere. A ninth gives you 40 degrees, but that puts you in central Spain. An eighth, 360 divided by 8 is 45. Well, that puts you in central France. So we're getting there slowly.
Right.
Well, how about a seventh? Well, a seventh of the circumference of the Earth is about just over 51 degrees. And that will put you in southern Britain. So that would be good. And also, the number 7 is a pi number. And pi, as we see, is central to these monuments because all of the Giza Plateau is infused with pi. Why? Because it's a special unit of mathematics. It's a constant. And so they use pi because it's recognizably technical. And the pi they used was 22 over 7. Excuse me, which is not the actual pi, but it's a very close approximation. And it gives you whole numbers as denominators. So they use 22 over 7. So the number 7 is a special pi number. And so this would be a useful number to use for many reasons. And so we're going to use this as our latitude of Avebury. So what we're going to do, if you take your calculators, if you type in 360 and divided by 7 equals, and we come up with a number. Now, we only need to use 5 decimal places. 5 decimal places will give us to the nearest meter, which I think is good enough. So let's type that in. So we want a N for north, N.
Do we space after N?
You don't have to. Google's quite good, actually. It takes it whatever you do, so you can do both, really.
Okay.
N51.428 57. And then we press enter.
Bam.
Bam.
just like that. It moved. It moved. You know what you did? It moved from their mark of Avebury, which I saved, which is, you see where it says Red Lion?
Yes.
Okay, right above Red Lion is my saved point, right? My waypoint. And your calculations took us right to the intersection of the two streets.
Yeah, it's good, isn't it?
Yeah.
Now, that latitude, that line of latitude we've calculated, is not just 360 divided by 7. That is somebody knowing the circumference of the Earth and knowing how to measure from the equator up to that latitude in order to be able to create Avebury at that particular point. That's pretty technical. That's pretty technical, especially with that degree of accuracy.
Yeah, and it's right to the center, too.
Yeah, to the nearest meter.
Wow, that's trippy. It is. No, it's trippy. That's pretty trippy. Especially using pi and then how you got there, from, 10, 9, 8, 7. Wow. Okay, yeah. That's trippy. To take you
right on the center.
Right to the center of Avebury. Wow.
This is highly technical. Whoever created this henge had the understanding, had the technology in order to be able to track this line of latitude.
No doubt.
And of course, this is what people nowadays in this sort of field call a ley line. What is a ley line? A ley line is an invisible line that runs across the country that joins up certain special places. And we use ley lines all the time today in the modern world. It's just that we call them latitudes and longitudes. They are ley lines. That's where they came from. And this ley line is that particular 1/7 ley line. And it goes right through the center of Avebury.
Okay, I'm gonna save this and put this in my notes. Okay, got it. Okay, no, I'm saving these the points, the longitude and latitude. Okay, got this saved for later. Okay, go ahead.
So we know that these megalithic monuments are technical, and how could this have achieved? Could Neolithic man have been able to do this? Now the answer is no. Especially when you come onto the islands in the Southern Ocean as well. This is evidence of alien intervention because only they would have had the technology in order to be able to place Avebury in that particular position. So the technology to make Avebury is fairly simple, but the technology to place it in that location and the technology to draw what has been drawn on it, i.e. the image of the Earth, 23 degrees, angle of obliquity and all of that is beyond the capabilities of Neolithic man. And that's why there must have been intervention in order to create this monument.
Now, while you're there at Avebury, look at the field directly south of our waypoint, straight down at 6 o'clock, the tan field. Look at that crop circle in the middle. That's a pretty special one.
Someone's been busy out there.
Yeah, that's a pretty interesting one. It looks like if we move it around here, I almost want to tilt it. Looks like we got some Freemason action going on there and some other stuff, but that's an interesting crop circle.
It's one of those impossible triangles.
Yes. Oh, that's what it is. It's MC Escher. Yeah. We got some MC Escher action going on. And you see the other crop circle, right, at 2 o'clock off of our waypoint in the next field to the north?
Oh, yes, there's a star-shaped one. That's an old one, yes.
Yeah. Star of David with a little snowflake
around it. Yeah.
And
someone's been busy out there.
And then, of course, we have Silbury Hill right here, too, as well. Is there a connection?
Yeah, Silbury. I do use Silbury in mine. It's difficult to explain because I use it in procession in order to calculate a date using Stonehenge, Avebury, and Silbury.
Isn't that part of some of the Arthurian lore that possibly Camelot was on the top of Silbury?
Oh, I didn't hear that one. But the interesting thing about Silbury is there is a copy of Silbury out in Edessa. So, we were talking about Edessa in the previous talks. Edessa has a copy of the Silbury Hill, which is at their necropolis, which is well worth seeing if people ever get out to there in eastern Turkey. The necropolis of Edessa is quite wonderful. And there is a copy of Silbury Hill there, and it's exactly the same size.
Wow. And has anybody ever done ground penetrating radar on Silbury? I mean, it always looked to me because any rooms, any tunnels, or is it just a mound?
Well, they dug into it in the 1950s, and they dug a tunnel right down to the bottom, and they found nothing. But they've been back, and they've done some more archaeology there, taking samples for carbon dating, because they found some wood props and various things there.
Right.
But there was nothing underneath it. It was just a mound layered up, so it's obviously man-made. And the dating was, a lot of the dating for these monuments is difficult to ascertain because, as I said before, you can date something, but you can't date when the monument was built. So for places like Avebury, for instance, they have dated pieces of antler and so on because these ditches were probably made by antler picks, and they found little pieces of antler. And they found other burials and various bits of rubbish in the bottom. And they dated those, and they came out with a date. But that only dates when that was dropped into the bottom of that ditch. It does not date when the ditch was made. And so all of these intrusive burials and intrusive pieces of rubbish are not the age of the henge. That's probably when the henge was abandoned, not when it was created.
Right.
And so we don't know the true date of these particular monuments. And when we go back to Stonehenge, Stonehenge is given all those classical dates, about 2500 BC, all that sort of business. But in the car park of Stonehenge, they found some remains of totem poles, which was actually something much, much better to carbon date than any of the rubbish they had found at Stonehenge itself, because these henges were kept meticulously clean. There was no rubbish on these when they were functioning temples. And so there's not very much to date there. But anyway, under the car park, they found these great big totem poles. So they dated those. And they came out to, I think it was 8,000 BC.
Wow. Okay,
yeah,
our next...
So there was a big discrepancy.
our next waypoint, where are we going next?
Okay, and next we're going to Stonehenge. So let's jump to Stonehenge. Now, we talked about Stonehenge before, so I'm not going to talk about this too much. That Stonehenge is an image of procession, and that's why you have the little circles top and bottom, because they are the processional circles. So Stonehenge is very similar to Avebury. It's an image of the earth processing on its axis. And all of the angles add up as they should do, exactly the same as they are on the earth. So we're not going to talk about that too much. What I will say about it is that, again, they knew the latitude. It was put on a special latitude. So they weren't just drawing something on the plains of Salisbury. They put it on a special latitude. Now, the latitude they used in this case was the angle of the sunrise. So the main avenue that comes out of Stonehenge points at the midsummer sunrise. Now, the midsummer sunrise angle changes with your latitude. So if you're down in Spain, you will have a much lower, smaller angle than if you're up in Britain. So it changes as your latitude changes. And there's only one point where the latitude will equal the sunrise angle. And Stonehenge is built on that latitude. So again, this is highly technical. It means that someone has been able to measure the sunrise and also measure the latitude in which to build the Stonehenge monument. And they chose this special place where the sunrise angle equals the latitude. That's where Stonehenge is. So again, they understood latitudes. They knew how to measure it from the equator in order to be able to put the monument at that position. Why has it been done? Because it shows that this is technical.
Now, you mentioned to me before, too, as well, that precession is involved in Stonehenge. And what do you use? I do believe you said that, right?
Yes.
Now, what are you using for the precession measurement on Stonehenge?
Well, let's bring it up on Google Maps.
I'm there now.
Yeah, it's not a very good image, is it? It's not as good as the Avebury one.
No, it's not.
Yeah, they need to do some more photography there.
They're scared.
Yeah, gosh, you can't really see it on this. You're going to have to look on my my tablet version is the better one because it has an infrared image of Stonehenge, and it's very, very faintly in the 5 o'clock position. You might be able to see a circle on the outer henge, so not on the Stonehenge, but on the outer earthwork henge. At about the 5 o'clock position, you might be able to see a sort of very faint circle. That's another little henge or earthwork ditch system, and there's an equivalent in the 11 o'clock position near the path. Again, it's not very visible on here.
Yeah, but, anyway, you can see it. You can. I'm looking at it. You can see the 5 o'clock and the 11 o'clock. Yeah, 100%. Yeah. Just inside. Is that the Bluestone Circle?
No, the Bluestone Circle is actually inside the Stonehenge.
Yeah, which is the? Well, I can't remember the name of
the Aubrey Circle.
Yeah, the Albury Circle, and it's right there at 5 o'clock. You can see it, and then you can see the 11 o'clock one right at the corner of the path.
Yeah, and the Aubrey Circle was made deliberately with 56 holes because this is part of the same scenario. And in fact, you can do this on the calculator again. So if you go to your calculators and you do 360 for 360 degrees, divided by 56, which is the number of Aubrey holes, so divide by 56, equals, that's the spacing between each Aubrey hole, and then we multiply by 8, and that's the latitude of Avebury again.
What?
To the nearest 5, 6 decimal places. Well, it's exact. Why have they done this? It's so that the spacing between these Aubrey holes can be matched to the latitude of Avebury. And also, if we do this again, 360 divided by 56 equals, and times 3.5 equals 22.5. Why have they done the 22.5? Because this is the angle of obliquity that they used at this site. So this is the angle of inclination of the Earth.
Right.
At present, it's 23.5, but of course the angle of the Earth changes, and it changes from 22.5 up to 24.2, I think it is. And so they're saying here that the angle of obliquity they're using, the angle of leaning of the Earth, is 22.5 degrees. Why have they done that? Well, because if you multiply by 4, is 90 degrees. 90 degrees means that any star map you draw, not star map, any zodiac you draw will have a very nice symmetry when you draw it, because there are 2 circles. Again, probably the best picture of this is in my Grail book, actually, because I go through this in the my Grail cipher book, And you end up with two circles if you draw a proper zodiac. One is the celestial sphere and the other one is the ecliptic sphere. And they intersect each other. And they intersect by the angle of obliquity, the angle of the leaning of the Earth. And so if you make the angle of obliquity 22.5 degrees, it's exactly 1/4, and it makes a very, very, very nice symmetrical zodiac. So anyway, yes, and the other interesting thing was this is exactly what they did on the Dendera zodiac. But because a cramped central position on the Dendera zodiac, they widened it out to half so they could get all the characters in the middle of it. So they knew perfectly well what the angle of inclination of the Earth was because they just doubled it for artistic purposes.
What about the position of Stonehenge being nearly south of Avebury? It's off by what, a degree at that distance, but it's almost exactly due south, isn't it?
Yes, and again, I use this in my Thoth book. So all of this information is coming from my book, Thoth, Architect of the Universe, which was written a long time ago. This is 1997. I use this because I saw a similarity between this and the layout of Giza and Dashur, which follows that same pattern.
Now, I'm going to say something else really, really crazy. But I'm looking at it on the map here, and it's trippy that this is happening. There's a road that goes from Avebury to Stonehenge.
Mm-hmm.
And it curves, right? It's a big loop, and it's A360 on the London, on the UK. But is that an ancient road that was eventually made modern? Because it doesn't go straight. It's a big curve, and it goes right past Stonehenge. Starts at Avebury, goes through the center of Avebury. I'm not making this up. If you look. A360, it's A361 at the top, but it goes right through the center of Avebury, curves around, and goes right through. That's the road that goes by Stonehenge.
Okay, yeah, I can't quite see it here. I'm just looking. A lot of these roads were, of course, very ancient. The road that goes past Stonehenge is partly Roman, of course, which is why it's nice and straight. The Romans followed these old megalithic sites because they were obviously sites that people wanted to visit. They were obviously centers of commerce because that's where people went, whether it was annually or every month or whatever. Right. And so the Romans built their roads up towards it. There's a road that goes up towards Silbury as well, a Roman road, and it changes angle at Silbury. So it's quite obvious that they knew about Silbury.
You don't find that strange that you could get in a car at Avebury, drive in a half circle, and drive right past Stonehenge? That's pretty
I'm sure these were on. This was on the megalithic tour, as it were.
Yeah, no doubt, no doubt.
In those days, if you were doing a tour of the monuments, you would go from one to the other, so there would have to be a communication technique between the two.
Yeah, it's right here. Okay, go ahead. I'm sorry. I see something like this, and it just hits you in the face. It's rather obvious. There are no straight roads, right, in all of Britain, right? They don't exist.
No, they don't.
Right? And here is a road that you could literally not change lanes, not doing anything, and depart Avebury, which is not large, right? And take this and drive right past Stonehenge, park in the parking lot, and walk across the street.
Yes.
Yeah, that's pretty bizarre.
I'm sure lots of people did that back in the day when these were functional. Yeah. So we have our technical henges. So perhaps we ought to look at our technical pyramids as well.
Okay.
So let's jump a few thousand kilometers and disappear off down towards Giza and see what we can find there. Because if we can find technical designs at Avebury and Stonehenge, then what can we find at the Giza pyramids? Because these are obviously much, much more expensive, better monuments than Avebury and Stonehenge. And I suppose the first thing to look at is the dating of these, because, of course, classical history will put them at about 2,500 BC, whereas modern investigations have tended towards the sort of 10,500 BC. Well, I would go with the latter because there is a simple, and I've not seen this mentioned anywhere else, and I don't know why historians have not gone into this. There's a very simple way of dating the Great Pyramid, and in fact the Dashur pyramids do this as well, is through erosion. If we take erosion as being a fairly constant, then we can measure the rates of erosion and we can measure how old an artifact is. And as it happens, Giza is made of limestone, so it erodes fairly well. And measure it. And even better than this, the Great Pyramid and the Red Pyramid at Dashur were built on a pavement. So there was a big, thick pavement that was built, and then the pyramid was on top of it. And the pavement sticks out at the bottom by about 50 centimeters or so, out of the bottom of the casing stones of the pyramid. And this was wearing away, by the feet of pilgrims and the weather and whatever. This material was wearing away. And then, about 1,000 years ago, the sort of ancient equivalent of ISIS came along to Stonehenge and wrecked the whole site. So this was after the Muslim invasions, and they stripped off all the casing stones. So about 1,000 years ago, the casing stones were stolen. Now, this left a big mark between the two. So we have the erosion line, and then we have the fresh pavement underneath the casing stone that's just been stolen. But then, of course, over the last 1,000 years, that starts to erode as well as people walk on it and the weather and everything. And so we get two pieces of weathering, erosion, on one stone. So we're not talking about two different stones here and trying to measure between the two. This is one stone with two sections of erosion on it. And all you have to do to date the pyramid is to measure the erosion where it was covered by casing stones, and then measure the erosion which was always exposed ever since the pyramid was first made. And the difference between the two is at least 10 times as much on the eroded side.
Do you have any idea what that equates to in years?
Well, if the casing stones were stolen 1,000 years ago, we have a baseline, and the baseline is 1,000 years, say. So if it was 10 times the erosion, that's 10,000 years ago.
Right.
Plus the original 1,000 makes 11,000 years ago.
Well, let me jump in here. Everybody get your stuff ready on Giza on Google Maps. We blew past a commercial break 30 minutes ago because we were deep in conversation. I've got to pay the bills, Ralph. So let's do that now. Tonight is part 3 with Ralph Ellis. And it is first message, first contact, and the secrets of the Megaliths. Ralph Ellis is our guest live from Spain. I'm your host, Jimmy Church. Take a quick break. We'll be right back. Get your Google Maps in satellite mode with the Giza Plateau ready. We'll be right back.
This is Fade to Black with Jimmy Church on the Game Changer Radio Network and KGRA, the Global Radio Alliance.
The station that talks the net. KGRA Radio.
Hello, I'm Katie, and you're listening to my main man, Jimmy Church, on jimmychurchradio.com.
Hi, this is Ray Hobbs here, repping the planet, and you're listening to my good friend, Jimmy Church, Fade to Black, on the Game Changer Network and the KGRA digital broadcast station.
Hey folks, Life Change Tea here, reminding you that colds and flus suck. Feeling lousy sucks, and allergies really can be annoying. What if you could change that? What if you could drink something that changed the sick and tired scenario? Well, you can change how you feel with a little help from Life Change Tea. Life Change Tea is a drink you make, you control, and you drink. There are 8 organic herbs that blend together and give you what you need to fight the flus and colds of this world. Less sickness is more relief. Life Change Tea can help with high blood pressure, constipation, high cholesterol, and much, much more just by drinking the tea. Read the numerous testimonies at getthetea.com. If you're tired of feeling lousy, order right now at getthetea.com. That's getthetea.com. Or you can call us at 928-308-0408. That's 928-308-0408. If you've heard this commercial more than once and someone's trying to tell you something, it's time to get well. GetTheT.com.
Imagine no longer being tied down to your computer, but having the freedom to take live talk radio with you anywhere you go. TalkStream Live introduces our first ever iPhone application. The talk shows you follow now follow you. And your iPhone is now the fastest and easiest way to stay connected to the best talk radio on the internet. Let TalkStream Live transform the way you listen to radio. Listen to live talk shows 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. Mobile talk radio from TalkStream Live. Now available in the iTunes App Store.
This is Toby Kebbell. You're listening to JimmyChurchRadio.com. Don't hurt me, Jimmy. I'm only little.
Hey, I'm Adrian Grenier. And this is Ari Gold. We're the Honey Brothers. We're of the Honey Brothers. Hey, I'm Adrian Grenier.
And I'm Ari Gold.
We're the Honey Brothers.
And you're listening to Jimmy Church.
The Revolution.
What's up, Fadernauts? Studio Dome loves Fade to Black and the F2B audience so much that they have put together the ultimate stereo Bluetooth system. They've done it just for you. Man, check this out. The Studio Dome SBB2 stereo system is here. It's featuring 2 Studio Boombox 2 SBB2 wireless Bluetooth speakers, packed in its own custom hardshell case. This Studio Dome system features the very latest in stereo Bluetooth technology. The 2 full-range boomboxes are in true wireless stereo. You've got to hear this. It's amazing. It's just $129, and use the promo code JCRTWS, and you'll also get free shipping. It's simple. Just go to JimmyChurchRadio.com, click on the Studio Dome banner. Go Beckley Tepe.
This is Micah Hanks of the Gralien Report, and you're listening to Jimmy Church on Fade to Black, across the globe on the Game Changer Radio Network and the one and only KGRA Radio, The Planet.
All right, welcome back to Fade to Black. I'm your host, Jimmy Church, on the Game Changer Network and KGRA, The Planet. Follow us on Twitter at JChurchRadio. That's what you want to do. Email is Jimmy@JimmyChurchRadio.com. Our guest tonight is Ralph Ellis. He's back for part 3. And tonight it's First Contact, First Message, and Secrets of the Megaliths. Okay, Ralph, we're on the Giza Plateau.
Yeah, we've arrived at Giza. And yes, what a sight about this is. And I'm presuming your listeners are fairly familiar with Giza.
Yes,
that it's mathematical, that these are not tombs and all the rest of it.
You know, and there's one, as you look at Giza, and it doesn't really hit you until you really start to look at it. When you look at Google Earth all around the planet, you can go and do it. And you can look right to the east here and look at Cairo and see how
mangled it is. You know, there's nothing that's east or west or north or south, right?
No, they don't do town planning very well.
Not at all. And then you look at the Giza Plateau, and it's dead nuts.
Yeah, everything is laid out properly.
It's dead nuts. Look at the Sphinx. Is there anything more east-west than the Sphinx? I ask you. It's spot on the money. Of course, the pyramids are, but it's just all east-west. It is completely dead nuts.
Yes, and yes, it was laid out as a complete project, of course, and. Where shall we start with this? Yes, it's technical. These monuments were built as monuments to mathematics. They weren't built as tombs, of course. No mummy has ever been found in a tomb, in a pyramid. These were monuments to the cosmos and monuments to mathematics. So this was a cathedral site. These are 3 great cathedrals. Dedicated to mathematics and to astronomy. So the layout is as of the Belt of Orion, as everybody knows. The causeways that go out point at the cross-quarter sunrise, which is 1 month after the equinox. Yeah, 1 month either side of the equinox. The pyramids themselves are mathematical. So the second pyramid is based on the 3-4-5 triangle. It is a perfect 3-4-5, and we're talking here, to the nearest 5 centimeters. So it's a great piece of architecture. The Great Pyramid is not simply a representation of pi, although it does that. It's also a circle. It's a representation of a circle. So it's based on 2 pi r. 2 pi times the height of the pyramid gives you the circumference, which is the formula for a circle. So these pyramids are telling you from the outset that they are technical and mathematical. And it's an invitation to anyone who with a mathematical bent, come and investigate me, because you'll find more. And of course we will. And we still, these were so important that we still use the same measurement systems today. So that the height of the Great Pyramid is 280 cubits. Now, you have to do all these measurements in cubits because that's what they were using. There's no point doing it in feet or in meters. So it's 280 cubits high times 22 divided by 7, which is pi, of course, and then multiplied by 2 again because we are using the formula for a circle, so times 2. Is 1760. And I'm not sure if you recognize that figure, 1760.
I'm busy doing math here. Hold on.
Okay, so it's 280 times 22 divided by 7 multiplied by 2. And the answer is 1760. So that is the circumference of the Great Pyramid of Giza. So we've just calculated the circumference by using pi as a circle. And that gives us the circumference. And of course, we still use that system today because that is the number of yards in a mile. And I'm sure America, still being on the imperial systems, you'll be familiar with that. A mile is 1760 yards. So we're still using the Great Pyramid measurement system even today. That's how important it was that people understood it and they still used it. And in Britain, we used the rod system as well. I'm going to have to just choke a bit here. Hold on.
That's okay. Drink.
in Britain, we still use the rod and the chain system, which again is based on pi. So the original imperial measurement system was all pi based. So the chain is 22 yards, which is the denominator of pi, 22 over 7. And a rod was a quarter of that. It was 5.5. And that's a quarter of pi. 5.5 over 7 is a quarter of pi. So they were using a pi-based measurement system, and we still use that system even today. And we'll come across this measurement system later because it's quite important in Giza metrology. And so this was a very important monument all the way through history. And you've got to ask yourself, well, why does this not appear in something like the Old Testament? Because, the Israelites were here. They were in Egypt for 400 years. Joseph was the prime minister of Egypt. He was the vizier. He was the high priest of Heliopolis, which is only down the road from Giza. It's only, a few kilometers. Mention the Great Pyramid within the Old Testament. And the answer is they do. I've probably done this round the wrong way a little bit, but never mind. What they do is, in the Old Testament, they call it Mount Sinai. So what is Mount Sinai? Well, if you look at all the references within the Old Testament, it is the tallest mountain in the region. It's sharp. It's difficult to climb. It's on the edge of a desert. It has a boundary they put around it, so you couldn't touch the base of it. So it's a sharply defined mountain. It has a cave inside it where God used to live, and Moses went up into that cave. Quite clearly, their Mount Sinai is the Great Pyramid of Giza, because that's where these people were based at the time. And we can sort of prove that because of the mathematics that's involved within it. So the Great Pyramid is based on pi, as we said, but it's not just any old multiple of pi. It is a very specific number. It is a 40 times multiple of pi. So if we were drawing this as pi, we would come out with a pyramid that was 7 units high, and 11 across the base, which is exactly 1/40th the size of the Great Pyramid itself. So the Great Pyramid is a 40th copy of pi. And that's why Moses went up into Mount Sinai for 40 days and nights, because this became a signal of initiation into the secrets of Giza metrology.
Right.
If you were associated with the number 40, like Jesus went out into the wilderness for 40 days and 40 nights, the Israelites were in Sinai for 40 years. This was all a symbol of initiation into Giza metrology. This is what they were talking about, because the Great Pyramid is a 40 times multiple of pi. And people understood that. So, yes, the Great Pyramid and the Giza Plateau has been a central part of history down through the ages. And it's mentioned on numerous occasions in the Old Testament. It's just they call it Mount Sinai and Mount Horeb, because they are the two largest mountains on the Giza Plateau. And this gives us another clue as to what this all means, because they were calling them mountains. And they were correct, because, well, they are stars, because as everyone knows, they are the 3 stars of Orion. But they are also mountains. And they're very specific mountains, because it's difficult to see now because someone's nicked all of the casing blocks. But the Great Pyramid was cased all in white. So it used fine Tura limestone for the outside. And so it was brilliant white. The second pyramid was brilliant white, all except for 2 layers at the bottom. So it had 2 layers of dull red granite at the bottom. And the smaller pyramid, the third pyramid, was like half brilliant white and half or a third dull red granite at the bottom. So what are they representing? They're representing mountains up in somewhere very high where they're covered in snow. So the largest of the pyramids is all covered in snow. The second pyramid is all snow, but it's got a small tree line down the bottom.
Right.
And the third pyramid is much smaller. It's further down the mountain range. It's only got snow on the peak, and the rest of it is tree line down the bottom.
Now, I got the feeling here in just about 1 minute, you're going to freak everybody out. Okay, that's
Yes,
where we're
probably.
going with this. There's a method to this, everybody, and I kind of know what's about to happen. Go ahead. This is pretty amazing, actually.
Yeah, this is where it gets very esoteric because, as I said, the Giza Plateau is much more complicated than Avebury and Stonehenge. So they were able to put in much more complicated mathematics into it. And every now and then I'm having to do some entries into an email page to stop my computer shutting down. It shuts itself down every now and then. Anyway, let's continue. So
we have this we have the Baval shaft points. Right.
Yeah. Well, before we get there, we need to know what the pyramid looks like. In Avebury, we had an image of the Earth, and would you believe in the Great Pyramid, we also have an image of the Earth. And you might scratch your head and think, well, how can we have an image of the Earth out of a pyramid? But what they've done here is very clever. Inside the Great Pyramid, we have all of these chambers, and they've got a particular layout. And if you move that layout in a certain fashion, and the only way you're going to see this is if you have a look at the book, they can be revolved around to look exactly like the continents of the Earth. So we get all of Africa, we get all of the Middle East, and we get all of Asia on this Earth map, Great Pyramid Earth map. I'll give you a clue. It needs to be upside down. So you don't look at a standard cross-section through the pyramid and try to see it. So what they've done is they've made a map of the Earth, just the same as they have at Avebury. But this is a very detailed one because it has all of the continents on it, and it has all of the lines of latitude on it as well. So they were measuring latitude, and they are exact.
Yeah, they're exact, and they are north, south, east, west, and in the correct directions.
Yeah, absolutely. So we have a map. Now, what are you going to do with a map? What's the point of having a map? Well, there's only one real point, and that's to put an X marks the spot.
Of course.
You want to find a location. If you need a location, you need a map. And so effectively, what we have here is a treasure map drawn in megalithic stone that will last for thousands of years, and that's exactly what they've done. And the way we find, so now you need to find what was drawn on that particular treasure map. The way we do it is by proving that Robert Bauval was wrong with his star pointing theory. So sorry, all those people who have gone along with the star pointing theory, but it is wrong, and I can prove it's wrong.
Well, and I'm going to address a couple of things here. My issues that I have with all of those small shafts is that you can't actually look direct. That's the first thing. You know, so I have issues there. And second, for years they thought it was simply for air, for oxygen too as well. There's nobody really knows. I mean, Robert took a shot at it, and I give him credit. He's done a lot of great work. But it's all over the place on what they're for. And I always had problems with pointing that to a specific star. If you can't look at one end and look out and see the star at the other end.
Yes, well, that's true. That's very true. And also with the star pointing theory, they don't point at the same time. You know, on the diagrams, you'll see them pointing at the same time towards Orion and towards Sirius. They don't. One will point in September. The other will point in November. So they're not even simultaneous.
And some of the shafts are blocked.
Some were blocked. The Queen's ones were blocked. And the reason why they were blocked is because this is a quest. You're not supposed to find this. So we're looking for a treasure map to find some treasure. You're not going to bury this treasure just on the Giza Plateau where any vault robber can go and find it. This has to be more of a quest. And part of that quest was finding the shafts in the first place. So the first two were obvious because they were actually drilled through into the King's chamber so you could find them. The ones in the Queen's chamber were not. So you had to go and find them. And you can't find the location unless you find these two shafts. So you're tasked with going to find them in the first place because they're not obvious. They didn't break out into the exterior and they didn't break into the Queen's chamber either.
That's right.
They were totally hidden.
That's right.
So you've got to go and find it. And this is part of the quest that was left for posterity. You got to go and find these things.
Okay, give me some coordinates.
Okay, yeah. So if these are not star, and the reason they're not star
or air
is because they are specific degrees. So so heading south, we get 45 degrees and 39.5 degrees. Heading north, we get 39.5 degrees and 32.5 degrees. Now, the difference between these angles is 5.5 degrees and 7 degrees. 5.5 over 7 is a quarter of pi. So we're back to the pi pyramid again. Everything in this pyramid is to do with pi. And these shaft angles are pi angles. And you cannot point at a star if your shaft is set by pi. You know, if you want to go out on a particular night and point at a particular star, you have to have some sort of range of latitude in your pointing to point at that star at whatever angle it is. You can't do that with these shafts because these shafts are set.
Yeah, exactly. And I always wondered about that too as well with Boval. I mean, it moves. You know, so it's only going to be specific at when the pyramids are actually built. After that,
one particular year, and that's why it had this strange dichotomy between. They found that the site was built in 10,500 BC because that's what the Sphinx is looking at. It's looking at the rising of Leo,
right?
And then they didn't build the pyramids for another 8,000 years.
Doesn't make sense.
No, it doesn't make sense. I mean, you know, I'm out in Spain at present. We have something over here called mañana, which means I'll do it tomorrow. You know, but here at Giza they had mañana. I'll do it in 8,000 years. Come back to me in 8,000 years. I'll build it.
Right.
So there is a problem with this star pointing theory, and there is a problem with these shafts being fixed by pi. So what are these shafts? If they're not pointing at stars, what are they for? Well, we've got a map, and you're going to have to go to the book to find to see the map. But we have a map of the world. How are you going to point at something on a map? Well, what you need is coordinates. And we now have coordinates because we've got 4 sets of angles, and we can use these as coordinates. And so we can draw them on a map. And what they did with these particular coordinates is they used Giza, they used the Great Pyramid as the reference longitude. So instead of using Greenwich as we do today, they used Giza. And so you simply measure from Giza with these particular coordinates.
Now, I know where we're going to land here in just a second, and we only have 5 minutes before the break. But I want to ask you this. With these coordinates, and without saying where it's going to go, I'm going to let you announce that. How how accurate is it? Is it as dead nuts as Avebury?
Oh yeah.
Is it really? Okay, all right. Go ahead.
It's pretty good. This is pretty good, and it was the way it all happened was pretty good as well, because what you end up with, you draw these on a map, and what you end up with on your map as you draw them out, you end up with a triangle. But it's not any old triangle, because these are pi coordinates. You end up with a Great Pyramid. So, as I said before, the Great Pyramid, if you drew it in a small form, would be 7 high and 11 at the base. Well, this triangle that you draw with these coordinates has an 11 base and 7 high. It is a copy of the Great Pyramid on a map.
Okay,
and
go ahead. I know the audience is like, okay, all right, what's happening here?
Yeah, so we end up with this huge Great Pyramid on a map, sitting over the Himalayas. Now we can see why these pyramids were all white, because these are snow-capped peaks. We're talking about mountains up in the Himalaya. So it's given us an area, quite a big area, to go and find these whatever you're supposed to be looking for.
What are the coordinates that you punch into Google for this?
Well, to actually draw the pyramid itself is 70.64 east.
Okay, hold on. East 70.
70.64.
70.64.
And to north, N 39.5.
North 39.5. Enter. Oh, right.
And you're way up in the Himalaya there. Now, that is not the center of that's only one corner of the pyramid. What's happened here is it draws a big triangle across the Himalaya. And then you've got to decide, well, what is important within that triangle? And so, well, the obvious thing to me was the center of that triangle. And we have to go and find the center of that triangle.
Holy crap. Okay, wait a minute here. Okay, now I'm looking at this on the Earth, right?
Uh-huh.
Oh, man, this is messing with me, Ralph. The distance between Avebury and Giza in the Himalayas that I'm looking at on this map, is that it looks the same. It is, isn't it?
Sorry, say that again. The distance
between Avebury and Giza, and Giza and K2
is the same. Don't know. I've never looked at that. You'll have to have a look at that.
I'm looking at it here,
doing some cartography.
And that is, I'm going to measure this later, but I can tell you by my eyeballs.
It could be. I don't know. That's not something I've ever looked into.
Okay.
But what we end up with is a spot in the center of this Himalayan triangle that we've drawn, and it's obviously something there. Well, on the maps I had, remember I was doing all of this back in the 1990s when there was no Google Earth. You could only do it with a map, and my map just had K2 sitting at the center of it.
Right.
And so it gave me no information whatsoever. And in fact, even if you go on Google today, it's not very good, because all of these close-up maps on Google are not satellite. Most of them are actually aircraft, taken from aircraft. And of course, they couldn't fly an aircraft over the top of the Himalaya, so you're probably reliant on proper satellite imagery, and it's not very good over in this region because it's so high. So you can't even see the detail today on Google Earth very well. So I couldn't see this either. And so what I had to do was get a proper map of K2. So where do you do that?
Okay, well, let me jump in. We got to take a break right here, and I have to clear my head, and I'm going to do that during this break. I'm looking at this on Google, the full Earth view, That is a pretty trippy set of waypoints. This is Faded Black. Our guest tonight, Ralph Ellis. I'm your host, Jimmy Church. This is part 3. Stay right there.
Way out here, we listen to Jimmy Church.
You're listening to Fade to Black.
Always on the edge of the hottest alternative talk. Jimmy Church with Fade to Black. KGRARadio.com.
¿Qué tal, mis amigos? Yo soy Mario Carson, el tiburón, y los invito para que escuchen a mi buen amigo Jimmy Church Radio. ¡Claro que sí!
Not being able to fall asleep is so frustrating. The tossing, the turning, the adjustment of pillows and blankets. Ugh! Eventually you just decide to get up and start your day really early. It doesn't have to be this way though. Power Sleep is an all-natural non-prescription formula that will help you sleep like a baby. It contains neurotransmitter nutrients that promote the production of serotonin, which is responsible for feelings of well-being. Power Sleep is easy to digest and absorb and is made in a base of active probiotics. Don't miss another night of sleep. Order your Power Sleep at energywave.com or call 800-TURTLE-5. Add Power Vites to your cart while you're browsing. Perfect for Monday mornings. They're a complete multivitamin and mineral formula that will give you the energy you need to get through your day. Nourish your immune system and feel great. Get all the info and place your order at energywave.com. Enter code word SLEEP to get free shipping. These statements have not been evaluated by the Food and Drug Administration. This product is not intended to diagnose, treat, cure, or prevent any disease.
Did you ever turn to your radio for your favorite talk show to find that it's been preempted for this?
In the air to deep right center. Back goes Lewis to the wall, and it's out of here!
Or this?
And I'm ashamed of you, Hillary, for voting for it.
Do you have a favorite talk radio program that's not available in your city? Just go to TalkStreamLive.com for links to the best streaming talk radio shows. At TalkStream Live, you will find live talk shows 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. All your favorites are here. With such a large selection, you will also discover some new favorites. On the go and still want to listen? With a mobile smartphone, simply type TalkStream Live on your internet browser. Now you can take internet radio with you. You will also find hundreds of music, news, and sports streams. Best of all, the TalkStream Live directory is free and there's never a login required. Remember TalkStreamLive.com, the fastest route between you and your favorite talk radio show.
You are listening to Fade to Black with Jimmy Church on the Game Changer Network.
Oi, oi, I'm Reese Evans. You're listening to Jimmy Church. This is Revolution. The revolution will not be televised. The revolution is on radio. Ciao.
Welcome back to Fade to Black. I'm your host, Jimmy Church. Tonight, part 3 with Ralph Ellis. First contact, first message, and the secrets of the Megaliths. And yes, I'm watching Twitter now. Jimmy's freaking out. Yeah, and I know you are too. I am really tripping right now. Okay, Ralph, take it away. We're over on K2. And I have I've laid out waypoints on all of this, and when you look at it in an Earth context, there is some equidistant stuff happening, and it's pretty trippy. Okay, we're on K2.
Yeah. Well, we didn't get to K2 quite yet because I didn't have a map. So I spent ages. I went down to Stanford's in London, which is the big map shop. They didn't have a map. Again, this is back in the 90s when things were more difficult. And so I had to write to China. which was off the edge of the planet in those days. China wasn't the big power that it is now. And I asked them for a map of K2. And finally, after about 3 weeks, they sent this map of K2 back. And it was a really good, high-quality, large-scale map of K2. And so I opened it up, and what did I find there? The Great Pyramid. Strangely enough. So I was quite amazed, probably as listeners are as well, but K2 is a copy of the Great Pyramid. So K2, you can't see it on Google because unfortunately there's a join in the satellite imagery there and you can't see the mountains. So you're going to have to go to the book or the tablet and have a look at the images there. But K2 is a square-based pyramid, all on its own, not joined to any other mountains, aligned with the cardinal points. So it points north, south, east, and west. And it has a causeway coming out of the base of it, exactly the same as the Great Pyramid does, which is actually the glacier, which is...
you can see it. You can see it. It just...
Yeah, and it comes out at the same angle. It comes out at 14 degrees. That's Concordia, they call it, that big glacier that goes down there.
Right.
And so, yes, the causeway from the Great Pyramid is just a copy of this glacier. Coming out of the base of K2. So we have a larger copy of the Great Pyramid sitting up in the Himalaya. And this is why the Great Pyramid was made to be all white, of course, because K2 is up above the snow line, so it's perennial white. It's white all the time. And this is what they were drawing. They were drawing an image of K2 up in the Himalaya.
Huh.
And so, yeah, you've got to think about, how did Stone Age man understand, the mountains in the Himalaya? They'd been there, they'd seen K2, and they were trying to redraw K2 down in Giza. And why would they want to do that in the first place? And there is a problem with this, because all of these points are fixed. So K2 is fixed because it's a mountain. Giza is pretty much fixed as well because it's sitting there on the 30-degree parallel north on the Nile. It doesn't really have much latitude for movement. But the calculation we've made to find this mountain is also fixed. So we have a bit of a problem here. And before we get to that problem, perhaps we ought to go back and just see how I arrived at this.
Yeah, please do. I'm looking at all of these images of K2, and I've never contemplated something as crazy as this.
Yeah. But so Google Map is no good. If you're going to have a look at K2, you're going to need to put in K2 mountain into Google and then go to images, which is where I'm at now. I'm looking at hundreds of them, and I see what you're referencing now. Now you've got to see it from above because the topography is not visible so much from below. But if you look at it from above, it's a perfect square, the base of it. The rest of it is a bit rugged as it goes up, but there are four main ridges that go to the peak, and they are marked as the southeast, the southwest ridge, the northeast, because there are four main ridges that go up to the peak of it. And the way this was discovered is quite interesting because we started at Giza. We found some shaft angles at Giza. We followed those shaft angles and plotted them on a map. Those shaft angles gave a pyramid shape on the map, which is a copy of the Great Pyramid in the first place because it has the same dimensions. Then we looked in the center of this triangle on the map, and it happened to be pointing at something close to K2. And then I got a map of this region and had a look at K2 and found that K2 was a pyramid the same as the pyramid where we started. So the method of finding this was fairly interesting. I wasn't doing a survey of the Himalaya and came out with a mountain that happened to have a square base on it. But if there is a problem, because all of these places are fixed. So we can't move the Great Pyramid. We can't move the distance between the two, because the distance between the two is based on pi, so it's pretty much fixed. The only thing we can change is the position of K2. And that's the conundrum.
If this is if this is man-made, which is where we are going with
that's
all
where
of
we're
this,
going, yes.
right? That's a pretty gnarly thing to think about, because it's one thing to have something 450 feet tall, as the Great Pyramid is, and that's massive enough, 42 stories, 2.5 million blocks. Now we're talking about something humongo. I can't think of another word.
Yeah, this is about it's about 3,000 feet high from the base. It is humongous. But then, as I go through in the book K2, so this all comes from K2: Quest of the Gods, which is the follow-on. It's the sequel to the Thoth book, and the mythology of the region does sort of back this up, because the mythology is based on the travels of Dionysus, the Greek god Dionysus. And Dionysus, there is this story of him going up into the Himalaya. This is why Alexander the Great went up into the Himalaya, because you've got to wonder why Alexander the Great wanted to go all the way across India up into the Himalayas. I mean, what was he looking for up in the Himalaya?
Yeah, right.
The answer is he was looking for this. He didn't know where it was, because the Great Pyramid was still closed at the time, so no one had opened up the king's and queen's chambers. So the shafts hadn't been found. Nobody knew the layout of the Great Pyramid, so he didn't know exactly what he was looking for. But why else was Alexander the Great up in the Himalaya with a complete army, trudging over the top of all of these mountains? I think he was on the same sort of quest as I've been on. And he was also following in the footsteps of Dionysus. Now, Dionysus also went up into the Himalaya and fought the Indians in the Himalaya. And he moved mountains when he was up there. They were cutting rocks and making moving mountains. That's what it says. This is the mythology of Dionysus in the Himalaya. So was this a forgotten memory of what actually went on in those times, that someone actually carved out the top of K2 to make it the shape it is, because it wasn't the right shape, so they just sort of, chopped it off the edges a bit. It's all fairly esoteric, but it all adds up, and it adds up in the 2001 scenario as well. Because, as we said earlier, if you're going to come and do some social engineering, create a civilization, and this civilization is obviously the Egyptian one. So aliens came down, they formed this civilization in Egypt. They got them making this pyramid because it was a good work project, and it had all of the elements you need to keep a civilization together. All of the technologies, all of the social structures required to make a civilization. And they were making, at the same time, a map. But if they were going to leave any information, they're not going to do it on the Giza Plateau. As I said, you're not going to leave something at Giza where it can be found by some vault robber. You're going to put it somewhere more remote.
Well, I'm looking at a topographic map right now.
Oh, you found one, yeah?
Oh, yeah, I found a bunch. It's friggin' square, man.
It is.
This isn't legal. I think we're breaking laws here. This is starting to mess with me. What is going on? It's square.
It's got a very good square base, and it's also aligned with the cardinal points.
Yes,
exactly
it is. Oh man, Ralph, you're not right. There's not a right bone in your body. This is really trippy.
Yeah.
Okay, continue. I don't want to swing off of the thought.
Well,
I'm just looking at I'm looking at Soviet, Chinese topographic maps. I'm looking at the world maps, topo maps, and I didn't think I was going to see what I'm seeing here.
Yeah, it was good. Well, can you imagine me when I first found it, and I just got this map all the way from China, and it suddenly arrived, and I opened it up, and there was the Great Pyramid sitting in front of me.
Wow.
And I compare the two. I've got them in the book, of course. I've got them one next to the other, and you can see they're identical.
And the sides are indeed flat too, as well. And you don't. Well, now that you know, you look at it with these a different pair of glasses here, and you start to look at it. Yes, and there's a lot of other peaks here too that naturally kind of form this. But K2
is all separate.
Yeah. And what about the angles, the side angles?
Well, no, the side angles are different because this is a natural pyramid, and so it's not as steep as the Great Pyramid. So it's not a pi pyramid. This is about a 45-degree angle instead of a 52 angle, whatever the Great Pyramid is. So it's not so steep, but then it would have to be not so steep because all of the geology in the Himalaya has been crushed because the Himalaya were formed by India hitting into Asia. All of the rocks got crushed. So you don't get great strata in the Himalaya that are strong enough to have a very sharp peak on it, which is why they're all sort of gentle peaks. And why you don't get any waterfalls as well, because there are no strata for a waterfall to fall off. So, yeah, if you're going to hide something, you're not going to do it on the Giza Plateau. You're going to put it somewhere remote. And what is more remote and least likely to ever be found by accident than putting something up in the Himalaya?
Right.
And then you've got to sort of ask yourself, what would you want to put there?
I don't know, Ralph. If you're the alien, if you go to a planet and you do some social engineering, you create a civilization, and you want to leave a message that you've been there, you're not looking over their shoulder every 2 minutes, because we know this, because otherwise you wouldn't have to use megalithic architecture. The only reason for using megaliths is because they last for thousands and thousands of years. That's right.
So the fact we've got megalithic architecture pretty much guarantees the fact that they've buggered off and they've gone and they're not coming back for thousands of years. But what are you going to leave there as a calling card? Because everyone likes to leave a calling card. Once same as the 2001 scenario again, once you've become technical, once you're a spacefaring culture, once you've found the monolith, what's that monolith going to say? Now, in 2001, A Space Odyssey, it was a big telephone, basically.
A radio signal pointing towards something.
Yeah. It called home and said, hi, this civilization has gone technical.
Right.
That's what it did. Now, that sounds quite reasonable to me, to leave a telephone, basically. So you can call in and say, hi, we're technical. We solved your quest. We're here. That would be a reasonable thing. I mean, what we're talking about is the fabled Hall of Records, of course. I don't know how much truth there is in a Hall of Records. I'm not entirely sure where this idea of a Hall of Records came from. But it is the sort of thing that you might want to leave, a sort of like an Encyclopedia Galactica. Here's the information. Use it wisely. Off you go, chaps. Or it might just be a telephone. Call home.
And it does seem, not to get off track here, but has certainly been enough quest heading there. You mentioned Alexander, you had Hitler, and so many other researchers and authors heading towards, Kashmir, the Himalayas, and there's a collection of monasteries that are there to this day. And it is a mythical place.
It is indeed. It's quite awe-inspiring as well when you go up there. Of course, I went up there. I detail this in my book. I had to go and have a look, didn't I? Right. So I trudged all the way up the glacier. It takes about 2 weeks, the journey, because there are no roads, of course. This is complete wilds, middle of nowhere, which you don't get anywhere around Europe and probably not really very much in America. So you're dropped off way at the base of the valley that goes up to the glacier.
Right.
And you walk from there on. So, we walked up, we took 2 goats with us for our meals. So I called one of them dinner and I called the other one lunch. And they followed us all the way up to the top of the glacier. But they didn't come down, unfortunately. And yes, it takes 2 weeks to walk to the top of to the base camp of K2. So that's not even going to the top of K2. It takes 2 weeks to get to base camp at Concordia, and then the mountain is still 3,000 feet above you or more. So we went up to base camp and went up to where I thought would be an interesting place. But the trouble is there's so much, the glacier is so fissured down there, we could not get across the fissures. Previous expeditions have gone up to where I wanted to go. But they were fully fledged climbing expeditions with professionals. And that's the sort of gear you sort of need. There are 1 or 2 helicopters go up there because this is the border between India and Pakistan, and it's still an active war zone basically. So you'll find gun emplacements and so on as you go up there with various soldiers, very unhappy soldiers sitting in these little sort of yurts trying to keep warm. And a few helicopters go up and down to resupply them. So that would be another way of getting up there. But of course, you have to be on oxygen if you're going up by helicopter because this is up at 20,000 feet. I mean, it's very high.
Right.
We didn't take any oxygen because we were going up slowly, and therefore you get acclimatized.
And what did you see on this expedition?
Nothing really to write about. I think what this was just investigating the region. I think what we need is some sort of investigation, instrumentation, looking at the region itself. So really what you want is a sort of magnetic survey, ground penetrating radar survey, things of that nature. Otherwise you're not really going to find anything. What it's obvious is going to happen here is that if K2 is a copy of the Great Pyramid, then it's going to have chambers inside it. And what you've got to find, of course, is the entrance to those chambers. How you can find that is going to be difficult.
Right. This waypoint here, by the way, and when you blow it up on Google Maps, it's hidden by clouds. Okay, so conveniently, I might add, this waypoint is that the peak of K2? Is that what this?
Unfortunately, you see, because Google Maps is made from a composite of lots of photos, then various ground features get blurred. And unfortunately, K2 has been blurred out of Google Maps completely, so you can't even see it at all.
No, you can't. And when you go to maps, off of satellite, okay, you have to back way off to see it at the point of K2. But as you zoom in, you lose all reference in Google Maps. Yeah. So I'm asking you, how close is this waypoint? The coordinates from the shafts on the Great.
That coordinate that they put there is fairly close to the top. The top is due north of the of the glacier. So if you continue heading up the glacier, it's just north of that glacier.
Yeah, and you can see that they'll give you that much in Google Maps. They'll show, they show the glacier, right? And the waypoint is, I don't even know what this is in feet, but it's just east of the glacier. But it moves off of, K2 disappears is what I'm saying. As you zoom in.
It's a bit like the image of the Great Pyramid. If you go back and have a look at the image of the Great Pyramid on Google Maps, you'll see it's a composite of two images joined together. But that's just the way they graft their imagery together all the time.
Yeah, they're cheating us here in Google Maps with K2. It's
a little bit difficult because it's so high, you can't get any aircraft to go over the top of it and photograph it, which is what they normally do. Most of Google Maps is not satellite view. Most of it, when you zoom in, is all aircraft pictures.
Right.
In fact, I used to take them some time ago. We used to go up in a light aircraft and just take a series of photos. And then they stitch them together and they make up the fine, large-scale maps for the satellite system.
So what is the message? What have you deduced with Avebury and Stonehenge, Giza, and K2? What is the message there?
Well,
and I do want to go back. I do want to go back to Avebury too and Stonehenge after the break. But go ahead.
Yeah, to me, it means that the whole concept of ancient aliens is correct. So yeah, there are ancient aliens, and they came, and they must have some sort of a protocol about non-interference. Which is why they're not here all the time. So they have a non-interference policy, much of the same as we do. If going out into the Amazon, for instance, and meeting a society over there. It also means that we have some idea about their society and how they're arranged. Because they will have arranged their education program based on their own society. So, for instance, I probably know how to greet an alien in their language. And in the alien language, if you meet an alien, you say shalom.
Say that again. Well, I know what you just said. What do you mean?
Well, what language are you going to teach the people? If you have an education project on a different planet, what language are you going to teach them? You're going to teach them your own language. And as it happens, shalom is not a Jewish greeting. It's Egyptian. Because as we were saying before, all of Hebrew and Aramaic came out of Egypt, and it's a daughter language of Egyptian. So in Egyptian, one of the greetings was shalom, with an R instead of an L, because the R consonant changed to an L when it went into Hebrew, as all of these words did, because the Egyptians didn't have an L consonant. They couldn't pronounce it. So in ancient Egyptian, the greeting would be sharem, which means peace. And that became the Jewish shalom, meaning peace, and it became the Arabic salam, which also means peace.
Wow.
And so, yeah, if you were doing an educational project, you would teach them the same language that you spoke, and the word for peace in alien language would be shalom. And this little bit was interesting in my bit of investigations into this, because in Arabic you say salam alaikum. But that's not Arabic, it's actually Hebrew, although they don't like to admit it, but they borrowed it from the Israelites. So in Judaism, you will say shalom alaikum. And then they say, if you look it up, they don't know where this came from. It might have come from the Talmud, and they don't know where it came from and what it means. And that's always a red flag to me, because if someone is saying that they don't know something as basic as that, then there's a reason why they're covering it up. And what it actually comes from is the first mention of this is in the story of story of Joseph, the guy with the coat of many colors. And his brothers come down into Egypt. So he's in Egypt. He's the prime minister of Egypt. His brothers come down into Egypt, and his steward goes out to meet them, who's an Egyptian. And the steward says to the brothers, salam alaikum, or shalom alaikum. That's the first reference we get to this greeting within the Old Testament. What's that in? That's Genesis 43:23. And then there is no translation of what the Alechem means in all of the Aramaic lexicon, which is quite crazy. They don't translate it. In the Arabic, it's said to be peace be upon you.
Right.
But I don't think it means that. And this is why they've covered it up, because Alechem in Aramaic means war.
Well, let me jump in. We got to take a break right there.
Okay.
And check this out. Now I just plugged in Göbekli Tepe. I just thought I'd put in some icing on the cake on all these coordinates. This is part 3 with Ralph Ellis. I'm your host, Jimmy Church. This is Fade to Black. We'll be right back.
Hi everybody, this is Rob Halford, the Metal Guard on JimmyChurchRadio.com.
KGRA Radio. Intelligent talk.
If your home has hard water and it's leaving white spots, then it's likely that limescale is clogging your pipes. Limescale can cost hundreds of dollars a year in wasted energy and early appliance breakdown. HydroCare systems available at Wave Home Solutions prevent and remove limescale with just a simple filter change every 3 years. There are no salts, chemicals, or magnetic coils. Satisfaction guaranteed. For more information, just go to bestwater123.com. That's bestwater123.com.
If you're a talk radio fan, AccessRadio.net lets you listen to the best talk shows anytime and from anywhere. Works on your mobile or landline phone, and there's no cost if you have unlimited minutes. No need to use your data. Find your favorite talk show listen lines and discover new ones. Now you can listen on your schedule. Go to AccessRadio.net. That's AccessRadio.net. Save your favorite listen lines today.
Hi, I'm Richard Dolan. When I'm not hosting my radio program, The Richard Dolan Show on KGRA, or writing new books on UFOs, I run a publishing company. I'm proud to say that Richard Dolan Press has published some of the most fascinating books available on UFOs and related subjects. They include Dr. Bruce Maccabee's classic analysis of the UFO cover-up, David Marler's breakthrough book on triangular UFOs, Dr. Richard Sauter's unique work on underground bases, and other classics by Grant Cameron, Chase Kletsky, and Dr. Bob Wood. Not to mention intriguing works by Eve Lorgan and Laurie MacDonald that deal with truly bizarre phenomena. I'm proud to publish such high quality and original works, and there are several amazing books about to be released over the next few months. Go to richarddolanpress.com to learn more.
Did you know that when you're on the road with limited data or Wi-Fi available, you can still listen to every minute of Fade to Black by just calling 605-562-4482. No smartphone, app, or internet needed. It saves your data plan and no extra cost if you have unlimited minutes. Just call 605-562-4482. You can listen to me, Jimmy Church, on any phone, anytime, anywhere. Göbekli Tepe.
You want to know a secret? I love ponies. I really love ponies. I'm serious. I couldn't stay sane without ponies to brush.
Why fade to black? Because you never got that pony, damn it.
This is Fade to Black with Jimmy Church on the Game Changer Radio Network and KGRA, the Global Radio Alliance.
Welcome back to Fade to Black. Tonight, part 3, Ralph Ellis, live from Spain. Tomorrow night, Freeman Fly is back with us, all things conspiracy. Then Wednesday night, John Lear, the OG. I'm your host, Jimmy Church. Back to Ralph. Ralph, you know, one of my favorite quotes of all time from my favorite movie of all time is deliberately buried. Did you say deliberately? I said deliberately buried. You know, and it's such an extraordinary moment in 2001. And then you kind of wrap your mind around that. And also, I think our good friend Arthur C. Clarke, is privy to something, because it was such a unique concept up to that point, the Sentinel. And then you and I, 2 weeks ago, we specifically talked about Göbekli Tepe being deliberately buried. You were suggesting the Romans. I was suggesting you're completely nuts. I think it's deeper than that. Well, I do, and this is what I think, and I want to stay on this deliberately buried statement. I think they deliberately. I think they froze Göbekli Tepe in time. That's what I think. I think whatever that date was, you were suggesting 7,000, 8,000 BC. I'm going further back. I'm thinking we're right at that 10,000 BC point. But that area in Turkey, Ice Age really starts to come into play. So I'm not so sure. But I think they froze that thing in time. They wanted us to unbury it in the future and see exactly what was going on. I don't know what the message is. I don't know what they wanted us to see, but I think that they froze it. It's a time capsule. It's a museum. There's language there. There's there's writing that we haven't been able to figure out. I do believe that there is a zodiac on one of those T-pillars too, as well, with a message. Yes. That scorpion is plain as day. And
yes, yes, I thought that as soon as I saw Göbekli, that these were astronomical symbolism.
And 12 in the main, is it B or C, where the 12 T pillars are there. Now there's something else too that I've found in my research of Göbekli Tepe. Göbekli Tepe itself, that region, that hill with all of the different stone circles that are there, and there's 22, 23 confirmed now, and certainly more. There's so much excavating that needs to go on there. But the T-pillars and the circles, it's not unique to Göbekli Tepe. It's throughout what is now Turkey in that area. There are others there. Göbekli Tepe is not the only one. And the T-pillars are not unique to Göbekli Tepe. They are found throughout southern Turkey right there. So, but I want to stay on this deliberately buried part. Do you think, I know you suggested Romans, but when we're talking about this concept, do you think that there's the possibility that they just buried it because they wanted to save it for us in the future, and they knew that some catastrophe was coming, and they needed to preserve it for the future?
Well, they didn't with any of the others, so that would be atypical if that's what happened, because we have the other megalithic monuments, like Avebury and Stonehenge, but we also have other Göbekli Tepes, as those pictures I showed you when I emailed some pictures of the same monuments over in the Balearic Islands in Spain. Now, they have T-shaped monuments surrounded by circular stone walls and small monoliths around the edge of those stone walls.
Now, those T-pillars were all two-piece, right?
Yeah, they were two-piece, but it was exactly the same sort of symbology.
Oh, they looked, absolutely. No question about that. I mean, you look at that and you go, huh. Yeah.
The problem was, of course, traditionally they're dated to the Bronze Age. So we have this enormous, a bit like we have at Stonehenge, we have this enormous gap in the chronology. At Stonehenge in the car park, it was 8,000 BC, and then they date Stonehenge itself to 2,500 BC. At Göbekli, they're happy to say, I think it was 8,000 BC, something of that nature.
Which is a crazy number regardless. I mean, that's an insane gap in time.
It's quite old.
Yes.
But then you go to the Balearic Islands and they say, it's Bronze Age, it's 2,500. And yet it's the same monument. It's quite obviously, although, when I wrote to the archaeologist, he said, no, they're completely different. Obviously, they're completely the same. They even have the same water channels that run underneath it. Which I suddenly saw on the Göbekli magazine when I saw that. So there is something wrong with the dating here. I think these monuments have to be of the same era, the Göbekli ones and the Balearic ones, because they look identical. So whatever era you choose, they're going to have to be the same. But also we have the fact that they've been treated differently. None of the Balearic ones have been covered up. And there are quite a few of them. There's probably about maybe a dozen or so of these different sites. And they've not been covered up. The only one we know that has been covered up is Göbekli. So you have to find out why that was treated differently.
Let me ask you this question, and I don't want to sound stupid, but I need to ask this. When they say, when dating for Göbekli Tepe is 10th millennium BCE, that's 12,000 years ago from today. Is that what that means? 10th millennium BCE.
They confuse themselves sometimes. So because they keep giving different dates because each person has their own chosen format.
Yeah, I get that. We'll talk about that in a second. I'm just saying for clarification, if I'm talking 10th millennium BCE, that's 12,000 years ago from today, right?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
And if they say that it was abandoned in the 8th millennium BCE, that would be 10,000 years ago from today. I'm asking you to talk to me like I'm 4 years old because, trust me, I'm a dumb guy.
But that's the problem. They keep mixing themselves up because the archaeological report that I pulled up on Google had 8,000 BP.
Right.
Which is before present, which is totally different. So they're confusing themselves in having all of these different reference points, and nobody's quite certain which reference point is the right one.
And with these types of mistakes in dating, not only in the public domain but privately in private conversations, we potentially could have a swing of 4,000 years.
Oh, yeah, easy, because the first date that comes out of carbon dating is the carbon date. But the carbon date is not a real date. You have to compare it with a decay chart. And for this sort of era, about 8,000 before present, the difference between the carbon date and the real date is about 2,000 years. So you end up then with a BP date, which is a before present date. And then you translate it to a BCE date, which is another 2,000 years. So yes, you can easily confuse yourself 4,000 years in this. And it seems that has been done because I've been seeing different dates in every report I look at. So yeah, we don't know. I'm going to have to research that further.
Yeah, I have, since you and I talked, and I know that you looked into it too, because Ralph was sending me email correcting me. I threw you under the bus there, Ralph. So I go back and I'm looking at different Göbekli Tepe websites. I'm looking at stuff from Istanbul, from the university. I'm looking at Klaus Schmidt. I'm looking at stuff from Germany. I'm looking at Wikipedia and trying to, get these dates firm. And it's pretty bizarre to me because it literally on 2 or 3 different reference points, official stuff, they're saying 10th millennium BCE. And then I went back and I'm letting the audience know, Ralph and I are pulling up different lab reports and carbon dating reports and numbers, and we're looking at those, and those dates are all over the place. And I don't know what to think. No matter what, it's incredibly old.
It is old. Although I don't like their dating technique. They're dating calcite deposits on the stones, and of course, if you're dating calcite, there is the possibility of contamination from the limestone because this is a limestone region.
Sure.
And the limestone will be, 10 million years old. And if you only need to get a little bit of that limestone, calcite from the limestone in there, and it will skew the results and make them much older than they should be.
Well, and I have said to all of the researchers that have been to Göbekli Tepe and they're looking at this and trying to figure out the significance and what it is. Is it astrological, astronomical? Is it religious? Is it neither of the above? Is it something that we don't know anything about? But when I think of a 10th millennium BCE dating and the combination of Giza and some of the other megalithic sites around the world, that 10,000 BCE, now we have something that is significant and that shouldn't be there, but it starts to corroborate other sites around the world too as well. So we need to really lock that in, because at 10,000 BCE, when you line up astronomically Göbekli Tepe and what it could mean, then it starts to corroborate everything else.
Yeah, and I'm sure that all of these megalithic monuments were all of the same era. That's why they all have so many similarities.
Bingo.
With the crazy walls, at Cusco, but you have the same crazy walls in Greece and various other places. This was all an era of megalithic architecture. And so all of these megalithic monuments should be pretty much of the same era. But they've just not managed to fix that era down properly at present because of these inherent problems with carbon dating. Carbon dating is fine if you get a pristine piece of carbonized wood that is in an environment that has no limestone. You can get a good carbon date out of that. But if you have an intrusive burial, all your dating is the date of when that trash was dropped there. You're not dating the monument at all. And then if you have limestone, you can get contamination from the limestone and you can end up with the wrong date on it. So there are many, many variables, and I don't think they've nailed down the true date of places like Avebury and Stonehenge at all at present. All they've been dating is intrusive burials. I mean, for instance, they did a survey just last year at Stonehenge, and 50% of the stuff they were digging up was Roman. And obviously it's not a Roman temple,
right.
So they can discard that. But if you suddenly pick something up at 2500 BC, is that the monument date, or is that again just discarded rubbish? One thing they were finding is rabbits were a real pain, because rabbits will dig a deep burrow, and things will fall down the burrow, and so now you find something a meter down, but it's not a meter down at all. It's a rabbit hole, and so things appear further down within the stratigraphy than they actually are. They're intrusive via people digging on the site or rabbits digging on the site. And so just picking something out from a henge is not going to give you its date unless, as I said before, unless you pull up one of the stones and find something underneath it. But they did this a long time ago with some of the reconstructions at Stonehenge, and they found that it was completely clean underneath the stone, which is quite odd, because when you're building this, you would have thought there would be loads of props and so on, to hold up the wood while they're trying to put it in place and all of this sort of stuff. But that wasn't so. They didn't find anything in the hole at all. So it was as if when they were creating Stonehenge, they made sure there was no carbon dating material underneath it. And so it is a very difficult site to actually properly date.
And in all of your decoding processes, do you have any idea when our friends are going to come back?
Well, this has got to come back to astrology again, isn't it? This has got to be procession. This is the whole idea of setting up the procession and the royal families and the priesthood who maintain procession. And what procession does for you is it counts off the millennia by checking the dominant constellation in the sky at the vernal equinox. So that's in March the 21st. You have a look and you see what constellation you have at sunrise. And we started with Leo, of course, which is, the Sphinx looking due east, looking at the sunrise. That's why we can date Giza to the 10,500 BC, because that's what the Sphinx is doing. So if you're maintaining a calendar from Leo onwards, what's going to be the pertinent points? Well, it's either going to be a half cycle or it's going to be a full cycle. A half cycle would be the end of Pisces. So we're in the constellation of Pisces at present, the era of Pisces. Now that, actually, I looked it up on the book there, and I've actually got it here as being 2500 AD as being the end of Pisces. And that would be a significant point to come back. And the other significant point would be a full cycle, which is another 12,000 years on top of that. 13,000 years. So those are the two pertinent points where it would be logical to come back and have a second coming, as it were, a second visitation. So I would be looking out at those sort of dates that someone would come back. I mean, and the fact, again, that we're using precession like this and counting off the millennia tends to mean that interstellar travel is actually still quite difficult. People say, oh, you can push through the speed of light and you can travel across, like Star Trek, and go on warp speed, or you can, jump through time or whatever. But if you're planning monuments that last for thousands of years, and if you're planning a calendar that lasts for thousands of years, it tends to mean that you're not coming back for thousands of years. And that tends to mean that interstellar travel is still a problem. There is an interstellar speed limit, which is the speed of light. And so, yeah, these visitations will be few and far between because travel is difficult. That's what it suggests.
Have you, we have 5 minutes, maybe 8 minutes left, so I'm going to bang out some quick questions here.
Yeah.
Have you overlaid Stonehenge and Göbekli Tepe?
No, I've looked at them side by side. They don't overlay very well. The better one to overlay is the monuments on Malta and the ones on the Balearic Islands, because they are very, very similar.
And what does that? But what does that tell you? And also, do you do you feel a vibe of similarity to between Stonehenge and Göbekli Tepe? Visual, obviously, they're megalithic, tall pillars, and they're circular, and they're friggin' old.
Yeah. Now, well, we have some possibilities here because we have the high-tech sites, which are like Giza, the medium-tech sites, which are like Avebury and Stonehenge, and then the low-tech sites, which are Göbekli and the similar monuments on the Balearic Islands. So we have three standards. Some of these lesser monuments are copies. We see this with Avebury. Avebury was the primary site. And then we see loads and loads of copies of Avebury all over the country, often made with wood because they couldn't build with the huge, great megalithic stones. So they built them out of wood instead. Those are obviously copies of what they saw sitting there on Salisbury Plain.
Interesting.
So you have the possibility that somewhere like Göbekli is a copy of something. Although Göbekli, of course, the stones are still quite large. It's still quite megalithic. It's not super megalithic. It's not like Stonehenge, but they're still quite large stones. So I would have thought that was an original site, but a lesser site. And so the information you'll find in a lesser site will be less than you will find at Stonehenge.
Okay. Back to the questions. I'm stuttering because I'm watching the clock here, and I need to get this out. Which is, who built Stonehenge? Who built Avebury?
Yeah.
And where did and as you answer, where did those people go? Because that is high technology, and we don't have a clue today.
Well, they were built by locals, of course. We know this from the Great Pyramid site, where building those shafts, the workers did not always do the work properly. They were being overseen by someone, but a lot of the work was shaky. It had to be redone. There were stones that were put in there that shouldn't have been put in there. So the work was done locally by local people under the guidance of some sort of ancient alien civilization. But they obviously weren't there on site all the time, overwatching every single day, because otherwise these Monday morning stones, as Gantenbrink called them, wouldn't have been put in position. The Monday morning ones are the rotten ones where they weren't concentrating.
Right.
Same at Stonehenge and Avebury. So they were made by locals, overseen by an ancient alien civilization. Yeah, we don't know where they came from, and we don't know where they went to. Now, within all of this, there should be some indicator as to where they came from. But of course, it could be anywhere within the galaxy. I mean, there's literally hundreds of millions of stars where they could have actually come from. But somewhere in all of this, perhaps up in K2 with the the fabled telephone in K2, there will be a method of making contact, a method of finding actually where they came from. But from the individual monuments themselves, there is no clue. Those monuments are just, Kilroy was here, we're leaving a message. Work it out from there, chaps. So we don't have an idea of where they came from. We might have an idea of what they look like, of course, because Akhenaten dressed himself up to look like an alien. So Akhenaten, Pharaoh Akhenaten, obviously knew what the aliens were supposed to look like. And that's why he made himself look with all those strange shapes, with a sort of diamond-shaped face and almond-shaped eyes, and wide hips and no genitalia.
Big butt. Yep, absolutely.
He was dressing himself up as a typical grey, the same as they will do in Hollywood today. Why do they do that? Why do they display aliens as looking like that? Because they're copying the form that Akhenaten had. And Akhenaten was using that form because that was the shape he believed that the aliens looked like.
And what about Karahunj in Armenia?
Don't know much about that one. You'll have to fill me in.
Okay. Well, that's a whole nother show. But Karahunj means Stonehenge in Armenia.
Oh, so they have their own Stonehenge.
Oh, it's 3,000 years older than Stonehenge. They're dating that at 7,000 BCE.
Yep, they're all over the place. There are loads of these now. It would make sense to have more than one, of course, because if you make one civilization, it could be wiped out by a single sort of natural event. So you would want to make several civilizations around the world to make sure that this educational process worked. So you'll make one major society in Egypt, you'll make a minor society in England, you'll make a major society out at Teotihuacan, I can never pronounce that word, Teotihuacan, over in Mexico, which is another ancient site, although it's not megalithic. And so you would make several of these sites around the world to make sure that one of them actually came to fruition.
Thank you so much, Ralph. Absolutely breathtaking 3 weeks. And look, everybody's going, okay, church, what's going on with part 4? Look, Ralph for 3 weeks in a row has gotten up at 4:30 in the morning to hang out with you guys, okay? We'll do a part 4, but let Ralph take a Monday off. All right. I'm going to send you some information on Karahunj. I'm curious as to what you deduce from it. And we've got a wrap, but the one thing I want you to check out, Karahunj has holes drilled in the megaliths that line up to the stars from one stone to the other. And it's now, have the stones moved over thousands of years? What were they lining up to? Well, that we'll never probably know, but they were doing just that. Thank you so much, Ralph. Absolutely fascinating. Great show.
Pleasure to be on the show. Thank you.
You got it. Ralph Ellis, everybody. There you go. Part 3. Absolutely amazing. Ralph Ellis. And do go to his website. If you click on his name over at jimmychurchradio.com, it'll take you straight over there. All of his books, everything is there. Videos, great images, great stuff. Ralph Ellis. This is Fade to Black. I'm your host, Jimmy Church. All that and more happened tonight with Ralph Ellis in part 3. Tomorrow night, Freeman Fly is here. All things conspiracy. I'm your host, Jimmy Church. Good to be back. We were out of town for 3 days up in San Francisco, hanging out with all of you. I'm your host, Jimmy Church. This is Fade to Black. Our executive producer is Rita Kamarian. Show is produced by Hilton J. Paul, Mark D. Kovar, LJ3, Renee, Mark Dunbar, Jonas, Dennis, Bob. Announcers are Steve Harder, Gene Vitoa, Mark D. Kovar, Fady by Dale. Webmaster is Drew the Geek. Music, Doug Aldrich. Intro, Spaceboy, spaceboymusic.com. Fade to Black is produced by KJCR for the Game Changer Network. Syndication is KGRA The Planet. This broadcast is owned and copyrighted 2016 by Fade to Black and the Game Changer Network. It cannot be rebroadcast, downloaded, copied, or used anywhere in the known universe without written permission from Fade to Black or the Game Changer Network. Very special thanks to Ralph Ellis, the one and only. I want everybody to be safe. I'm your host, Jimmy Church. Follow me on Twitter @JChurchRadio. Go Beckley Tepe.